So who's the kid?
She is the daughter of one of the mahogany friends. So I know her mother.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah,
it's gone.
she's done it before.
Gone for good. Our buttons are gone for good.
So you, Thursday, you coming in virtually, or you be too far away? You just for the work session because you're leaving for India, right?
Well, here's the catch. The plane flies through Abu Dhabi. That airport is closed.
Oh,
I don't know if I'm going to India or not.
well, we have rerouted.
I was trying to find out. I bought the ticket through Expedia, and I have no idea how that's going to work.
I'll call the Charlottesville regular business meeting back to order. Madam Vice Mayor, will you please read us out of closed session, please?
Certainly. I move that this council certify by a recorded vote that to the best of each council member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion convening the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. So we will vote. Is everyone
I'm not signed on yet.
okay? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, please say no. The motion passes. We're back in regular session. The next item we have on the agenda is a moment of silence. And as we have the moment of silence, I mentioned this at the 4 o'clock meeting. We had a resident that was a regular on the downtown mall near the post office that passed away within the last week. So we can consider that and others as during the moment of silence. Thank you. Are there any announcements?
I have two.
Okay.
The first is that it's a new month, which means it's a new neighborhood for the monthly neighborhood walks that the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee hosts, along with some help from the Historical Resources Committee. This month, the walk will be this Sunday, March 8th, and the neighborhood will be the Meadows. So the walk will be meeting at 10 a.m. on Sunday the 8th at the Best Buy, and then we'll loop through that neighborhood, which is has some city-county interplay there, so you'll have some good conversations and check out some cool stuff. There's also a park that's going to go in, and some new crosswalk and street improvements. So it'll be cool to see those. They haven't gotten started yet, but you'll see where those are going to go.
So before you move on,
yes.
10 a.m. That's a little bit earlier than it's usually. Is that correct?
They've been at 10 a.m. so far this year. It might switch in the summer.
Okay, maybe it was sometime.
Some other times it's been in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'll be sure to announce that when
Yeah.
and if the time changes. I also have an announcement for the My Help List student contest. Virginia students K through 12 are encouraged to participate in the upcoming My Help List contest, which starts Monday, March 9th and lasts through Friday, April 17th. The contest was created by our local trailblazer, Alex Zan. Students from Charlottesville, Albemarle, and the surrounding counties, including homeschoolers, are eligible to write in 150 words or less why it's important to help others and list 5 things they have done or can do to help someone. There will be 4 winners chosen from different grade sections to receive a cash prize of $100 at a gathering in their honor. Letters can be mailed or dropped off at Jones Heating and Air Plumbing Electrical at 633 Rose Hill Drive. And then there's some great local sponsors who are helping contribute. The contest is in honor of Virginia Gatewood.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex. Zan always has, a lot of great things that's going on in the community. He never slows down. He's doing some great things. We're now for proclamations and recognitions, and I would like to have a proclamation for the American Red Cross Month. Whereas during the month of March, we recognize the selfless contribution of volunteers and supporters who give their time, resources, and compassion to further the American Red Cross mission to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies. And whereas American Red Cross is synonymous with helping people in crisis, and it has been doing so for more than 140 years, this generous spirit is woven into the fabric of our community and advances of humanitarian legacy of the American Red Cross founder Clara Barton, who nobly dedicated herself to alleviating suffering. And whereas kind-hearted individuals in our community exemplify Barton's commitment as they step up through the American Red Cross of Central Virginia to provide a beacon of hope in our neighbors in need. And whereas the American Red Cross continues to embody the values of humanity, impartiality, neutrality, independence, volunteer service, unity, and universally promoting a world where people are cared for and protected no matter their circumstances. Therefore, with their selfless contribution, making a life-saving difference to people in the darkest hours. In 2025, at least 141 local Red Cross volunteers provided 23 families with shelter, food, and comfort after a crisis, hosted 59 blood drives, collected 117 units of life-saving blood, provided 33 support services to aid military families through the unique challenges of service, and provided 2,237 local individuals with first aid and CPR and AED and other life-saving training. Therefore be proclaimed that the City of Charlottesville Council recognizes March 2026 as American Red Cross Month, and we encourage all community members to join in its noble humanitarian efforts to strengthen and uplift the community. Signed March 2nd, 2026 by Mayor Juan Diego Wade. And I think we have some people here to...
Say thank you on behalf of the American Red Cross. As Mayor Wade shared, our mission is to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies, and we do that by mobilizing the power of volunteers and the generosity of donors. The American Red Cross is only as strong as the community and the volunteers that support it. So without your support, we wouldn't be here. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We're now at the opportunity for the first time for Community Matters. We have 8 slots for pre-registered speakers, only 7 signed up, but we have slots for 9 additional speakers. And the first speaker will be Jackie Timkins? Timkins? Yeah.
Start the timer.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hi, my name is Jackie Temkin. I'm a business owner in the city. Many of you have heard from me before about girls' sports and the fact that there is inequitable access to programming in this community and other communities. But before you right now is the opportunity to invest in equitable access to sports by funding Parks and Rec's request for specifically 2 positions that I know that they're looking for in the operating budget, an inclusion coordinator, as well as somebody to manage the summer camps and Connect sites. Inclusion is so important. It's not just girls, it's people with all different kinds of needs. As a lot of you may know, the adaptive programs are constantly, there's a wait list for them. And not just that, there's plenty of opportunities for kids to actually be incorporated into other programs as well if they had a little bit more support. So they definitely need somebody to help organize all that. And the second thing is the summer camp program and the Connect sites. I was completely gobsmacked to learn that the Connect sites provide free dinners to kids. I don't know if people here know that, but you can get a free meal. You can show up. And right now, a lot of the schools are the only ones that are feeding kids. Oh, sorry. Ooh, I just got overcome. And it's really sad that these kids just had multiple weeks of no food while schools were closed during the blizzard. And they really need the support, and they really need the help. And so, if there were more program sites open, and the people who run it are absolutely wonderful. And a lot of the women make their own food to bring in. And there's also a lot of grants from the city, from different programs that fund it. So it would be really great to be able to expand the program for other people and things like that. And the success of the playground too, up in Penn Park is huge. Right now they're focusing on summer camps too. There's a big need. There's currently no space for summer camp this summer yet because of the problem with the schools. So we could really, really use your help feeding kids and helping kids feel included. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate Miss Shannon Gillikin.
Hi, my name's Jessica Taylor. I am the bargaining chair for the Charlottesville Education Association, speaking in a joint statement for Shannon, our president, who has lost her voice. Tonight, the city schools will present a budget that includes a significant raise for our support staff. CEA spent the fall bargaining on behalf of over 200 employees, our custodians, nutrition and safety staff, office staff, and instructional assistants to get to this place. We'd like to give you a glimpse of what it means to be a support staff for the schools. CEA spent the last year listening to the staff members in this bargaining unit to hear their stories of what it's like to work at their current wages, how hard it is to make ends meet, how they choose between which bills to pay and what groceries to buy. Most support staff work additional jobs for 16 to 20 hours a week. We need you to understand that the same people who serve our children lunch sometimes cannot afford to feed their own families. Shannon's assistant has worked for the division for a decade in various roles, from after-school care to a nutrition manager to an instructional assistant. After a decade, she barely makes $30,000 a year. This is the person who works one-on-one with a refugee student to help her learn the alphabet. She provides accommodations for students with special needs and encourages and supports their kids in a way that makes them feel successful every day. In a classroom that's typically full of over 20 kindergartners, many of whom are learning English, she is essential. The custodians who the city and schools lauded as heroes during the snowstorm, one of whom even broke his arm while shoveling, is essential. They need to be compensated accordingly. This new contract will provide staff with a 9% raise and a step increase each year. It provides a stipend for continuing their education and degrees they earn, as well as longevity pay for the years of service they provide to our students. It's not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction. There's more work to be done to make both our city and schools a place that is equitable for its employees to live and work. We are counting on you to fully fund the city schools budget so our support staff can make a living wage. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan?
I'm Susan McCulley, and I'm a property owner in the city. I'm also part of a local organization called Keep Going Together, which is working to reduce harm and suffering in Charlottesville. When folks come to our organization, we ask them to get clear on what matters to them, identify their unique skills, and then take action. So, as your friendly local organizer, I say, well done. You have made clear what matters to you by passing the resolution regarding immigration enforcement actions and the letter to the Virginia congressional delegation and statewide leaders. Your reiteration of the city's commitment to civil rights, due process, and community trust is a very good thing. Given the weak response of other local institutions reported in the recent Seaville Weekly article, yours is, sadly, a preciously rare one. So, excellent. Thank you for that. Now, as a governmental body, you have a number of skills and abilities. In Keep Going Together, we call them superpowers, and council has many. You have the ability to advocate for action from state and federal officials, to communicate plans clearly to ensure preparedness and trust, and direct resources to those who need them most. Now that you've passed the resolution, it's time to put your power into action. We encourage you to make a statement regarding the city's plans, policies, and procedures around ICE actions. We encourage you to urge Governor Spanberger's administration to join other states that are challenging right-wing extremism and lawlessness. We encourage you to follow the lead of New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill's executive order banning ICE from undertaking operations on state property by prohibiting ICE operations on city property. As I said at the last meeting, the Latino and immigrant community has been intensely impacted by federal actions, and they need support. Sin Barreras and Fuerza Latina ask for funding for legal representation for immigrants, including habeas corpus petitions, funding for financial assistance for those who've been unable to work, and funding for mental health services to address widespread trauma. Federal actions directed at any marginalized group impact us all. At Keep Going Together, we know that a unified community response is essential, so we identify needs, assess how our skills and abilities can help, and we take action. We ask you to join us. Please take action now.
Thank you. Alicia?
Good evening. My name is Alicia Lenahan. I live
Good
in the
evening.
county. I'll begin by echoing Susan McCauley's thanks for passing the resolution and for communicating your principles and concerns with our state and federal delegations. Clearly articulated standards along with transparent and accessible accountability mechanisms will help ensure public safety. Today, we're calling on you to communicate regularly, clearly, and preemptively, because in this environment, truth doesn't just get lost, it gets edited and it gets branded. The struggle we see playing out hourly is one of perception, timing, and morale. You have the ability to take control of the narrative. Accurate information is power. We don't know when or why a federal presence will materialize in Charlottesville. It may be immigration or a protest or election interference. The community needs to know that today's Charlottesville Police Department, Albemarle County Police Department, UVA Police Department, and State Police work together and are good at managing large events. We need to know that they plan meticulously and develop comprehensive response strategies. Your communications plan can include formal statements as well as direct messages to those who are most likely to be affected by federal action. You have the law on your side. You have the facts on your side. By keeping the community informed, you will defang the strategy used by the administration that keeps people angry, disgusted, and distrustful. Listen to John Adams, and I paraphrase here. Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our prejudices, hatreds, or hot-button issues, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence. Say what you're going to do and follow through. Being transparent and consistent are essential elements during these uncertain times. Echoing Susan again, advocate for action from state and federal officials. Communicate plans clearly to ensure preparedness and trust, and direct resources to those who need them most. Together, we can get through this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Dennison?
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
I'm Mark Dennison. I am the Chair of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, many of whom are here with me tonight. And today I'm here to follow up on this letter that was sent to you a few days ago about the department's budget requests. In 2025, the City Council approved Parks and Rec's master plan representing a commitment to the community. In it, the residents told us that they wanted what they wanted: clean parks, maintained trails, and inclusive programming. Right now, the department is trying to keep that commitment with stretched resources, and they've found creative solutions, but they've hit a wall. These 4 positions that they've requested are critical pieces to the puzzle. A custodial maintenance worker to keep our parks and facilities clean. A trail maintenance worker because the trails are the community's top priority and the city has over 30 miles to maintain and more to come. An inclusion coordinator to ensure adaptive and inclusive programming year-round, and a CSA to support the Connect sites, after-school programs, and summer camp. To the point on summer camps, Jackie mentioned this earlier, but the department is currently working to avoid a crisis and needs your help right now. For years, families have counted on Parks and Rec for safe and affordable summer camps, but this year, due to the school reconfiguration, they have no site, no home for these camps. At least 125 elementary-age kids are waiting to know where they'll spend their summer. We know that solutions exist within this community, and we need council to help us find them, whether that's a school building, a community center, or a partner who can step up. So, tonight I'm coming to you with 2 requests, but these aren't separate issues. They're both about whether the city is going to support the commitments it's made. So, approve the department's budget requests so they can keep delivering on this master plan, and help us find a temporary home for summer camp. I know budgets are tight, and there's important priorities throughout the city, but Parks and Rec is not competing with those priorities. We are complementing them. Healthy communities need safe spaces, trails and recreation, programs for kids, and especially during the summer. As for the board, we remain committed to amplifying the voice of the community while ensuring the Parks Department is able to deliver. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bradford?
Before I begin, I want to present something to council.
Give it to Ms. Thomas.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Janaisha Bradford. I am the founder of Mahogany and Friends Foundation, a Charlottesville-based nonprofit building financial stability across generations. We equip children, teens, and caregivers with the tools and confidence needed to build long-term economic security. Our work focuses on 3 core areas: youth financial education before first employment, structured savings and decision-making skills, and caregiver financial coaching to reduce financial stress at home. At Charlottesville Middle School, we are positioned to deliver structured after-school financial stability programming during what we believe is a critical window, before young people enter the workforce and begin making independent financial decisions. We have also served youth through the Boys and Girls Club and have partnered for the past 2 years with University of Virginia's Star Hill Pathways program to deliver financial education courses to local students. In addition, we provide financial workshops and one-on-one coaching for caregivers through community partnerships. To date, without municipal funding, we have served over 125 Charlottesville residents, including more than 100 youth. Our measurable outcomes show financial knowledge increasing from 42% to over 90%, and student confidence increasing from 22% to 88%. Beyond the data, we're seeing real behavioral change. One high school student who initially had no interest in finance is now exploring internships with a financial advisor after participating in our programming. A parent recently shared that after a workshop, her child came home asking to open a savings account, and their family is now having regular budgeting conversations. That is generational impact. Our work aligns directly with the city's strategic outcome areas of economic prosperity, education, and public safety. We strengthen workforce readiness before first employment. We reinforce educational outcomes through structured after-school programming, and we help reduce financial stress in Alice households before crisis intervention is needed. For FY27, we are prepared to serve over 200 Charlottesville residents through confirmed school and community partnerships. We are committed to partnering with the City of Charlottesville to continue building financial stability futures for our youth and families. We have already begun this work in our community. With the city's partnership, we can build a financially resilient Charlottesville, where our youth are prepared, our families are stable, and prevention replaces crisis. Thank you for your time and leadership.
Thank you. Lisa Cutalo? Yes.
I wanted to share a little bit about snow on the sidewalks after the storm. And I live on Cherry Avenue, and I live right on the curve where when the city snow plow comes and moves it off the 6 inches off the road, I got about 3 or 4 feet on that sidewalk. But I'm gonna tell you something else I had. After this last snowstorm, I had 3 or 4 young men barely out of high school came to my house with pickaxe and busted all that up, community volunteers.
Yeah.
And I called down to City Hall in tears. I said, 24 hours, I'm not too strong. It's not fluff. This is not powder.
Yes,
This
ma'am.
is not ice. And I said, I'm not trying to get in trouble for this. She said, oh, it's okay, it's okay. And she gave me United Way number, and I called United Way, and those guys were just on their way out.
Yeah.
And then later, the City Hall called me back, wanted to make sure. I said, oh, yes, United Way's been out here. And so I was walking later, and of course I was walking in the road because my neighbor hadn't touched his yet. And he rushed out and he said, oh man, I'm so sorry, I haven't touched my sidewalk, I'll get it. But then he told me why it'd been several days since the sidewalk hadn't been touched. He works at the University Hospital, and he was there when the snowstorm came and he couldn't leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
He couldn't leave for 3 or 4 days, he stayed up there. And then I think it was the city came out and helped a few and got him, and I was glad to see him get the help that he deserved too. He was at the hospital for 3 or 4 days straight. But I know it's a stressful time for city pedestrians and people driving, and those roads got to be cleared to get people back and forth. But I just want to thank United Way, those young men that came and helped me. That was work. That's not easy work. That was, and mine was, I know that was the second house they did.
Yeah.
And it took them several hours to get that stuff done. But I just want to thank those young men, United Way in the city, and everybody pulling together.
Thank you so much. It was,
when somebody does something wrong,
yeah.
it's on the front page.
Yes.
But these young men, 19, 20, 21, could have been at home playing, doing whatever.
Yes.
And yet they walked out and said, hey, let's register, let's go help our neighbors.
Thank you. Thank you for spotlighting so much of the positivity that goes on in this community. I want to thank Sam and his staff for coordinating with the United Way to initiate that. It was a unique storm. So.
Could I add something?
Yeah.
I just want to say, within, it was Monday morning, I guess, was when I got this email saying, we got all the problems shoveling the walk. And so I'm not trying to claim credit here, I'm trying to give credit to, I sent an email to Mr. Sanders and among others to Misty Graves, and within a half an hour, I got an email back from Misty Graves saying she had just been in touch with the folks at the United Way, and they were going to try to get something set up, And by noon that day, there was already a program launched. And so look at Misty Graves in Department of Human Services, I guess is official title. Look at to the United Way people who jumped on it right away, as well as the volunteers who then came out. So a lot of credit to go around.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out to let us know about that. So we have the opportunity for 9 additional speakers. Bellamy.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm speaking as a member of Bennett's Village and in a supporting role as a member of the Charlottesville Parks Foundation. Just echoing our executive director in a letter that was previously sent to you. I write today in support of Charlottesville Parks and Recreation's budget request for a new inclusion coordinator. As we as Bennett's Village know, there are many barriers to play and recreation in our community. Having a position dedicated to addressing and supporting all inclusion requests that come into parks and recreation across all program areas could have a profoundly powerful impact on the ability of individuals and families to participate in the benefits that parks and recreation provides for programs and spaces. This position would be well suited to support the ADA assessment happening across city parks to identify gaps in accessibility and inclusion. We welcome additional city staffing to collaborate with as we work to ensure that everyone in our community has accessible and welcoming places to play. That's on that topic. On another topic, speaking in support of our school staff, I am a strong supporter of our public schools, have relationships with a lot of the support staff, and understand the impact that the situation most recently with funding has caused to them. I also recognize that I believe we have a $10 million surplus. It's also my understanding that to cover the funding for the support staff would be about $200,000. That's about 2% of that surplus funding. These are part of our backbone of our public schools and our education here in the community, but they are also often overlooked. This is an opportunity for us to support them strongly as they support our kids and our families within our community, and I hope that you all will vote positively to provide the funding that they so desperately need and deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Anyone over here like to speak? Anyone over here like? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Caroline Allison. I live in the county. I'm a current online Masters of Social Work student at VCU.
Hey, Carl. Hey.
Yeah.
Taught a Sunday school class. Grown up.
Yeah, we go back. And as part of my program, I previously interned at Tall Oaks Elementary in the city schools, or Johnson as I knew it at the time. And I currently intern at UVA Hospital. I've come here just to state my emphatic support for the city's official stance on the activity or potential activity of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency in the city. Both in working in the school setting and the hospital setting, I've seen the fear surrounding current immigration policies in this country. I know you all have seen it as well, with frequent protests and the recent school walkouts at Charlottesville High School and Albemarle High School. At Tall Oaks, I worked with many wonderful refugee families that reinforced to me the value of having cultural diversity in our community. And in my time at the hospital, I've worked with several undocumented patients that come from hours away to receive life-saving care, as UVA is one of the few hospitals in the state that accepts undocumented patients for services not including emergency care. I say all of this to highlight how Charlottesville is a rich blend of locals, immigrants, students, and refugees, and I firmly believe it is our duty to protect that community in its entirety as much as we are able. I know that this issue goes beyond the local and even state levels, and I know that oftentimes these decisions can be out of our hands, as it were. But I find comfort in knowing that this city that I have lived in and loved for 24 years is doing what is necessary to protect its residents and guests regardless of immigration status. Thank you.
Thank you. They grow up, I tell you. So, anyone in the center? Peter?
Good evening, Council and members of the public. I'm Peter Krebs from the Piedmont Environmental Council. We protect and preserve the soils and waters of the Virginia Piedmont while building strong, healthy communities. I'm here tonight to invite everybody to attend the Active Mobility Summit, which is taking place this Thursday and Friday at the Wool Factory. There are 2 sessions, one on Thursday evening starting at 5:30. That'll have a keynote speaker from Roanoke who's going to talk about how Roanoke has really centered their economic development approach on access to the outdoors and healthy communities. And we will be talking about things that are happening in the community, things that we can look forward to in 2026. And we're going to crown a community champion. I know who it is, but I can't reveal it. You'll have to come to find out. They're a well-known individual, well-deserving. Then on Friday morning, we're going to reconvene and focus a little bit more on the big picture. We're very excited to announce right now for the first time that Adam Spamberger, the first gentleman of Virginia, will open the session for us. We'll have more Commonwealth perspective, followed by leaders from around the state talking about, as Pete Eshelman will do, talk about how different areas are doing a great job of connecting communities and getting people outside. There will be lots of opportunities to learn about ways to get involved. There'll be lots of sharing and celebrating. There'll be free food and drink, so please come. So that's this Thursday and Friday at the Wool Factory, and you can learn more by going to pecva.org/mobility summit. I have flyers, and I hope to see you all there.
Thank you. Anyone over here like to speak? Yes, Ms. Parker.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Council. I have a question. So we was presented the budget. So we was presented the budget. I would like to have an understanding of who will be paying for the SROs to be in the school system. And also, I've noticed human trafficking. I've noticed we're having traffickers here in the city of Charlottesville. And I'm noticing that there are a lot of more young ladies going missing. Some may come home, but it's been right much of that. And as I've been watching different things on Crime Radar, I have been noticing a pattern for the last few months. And a person came to me yesterday, and they're being followed, and it's a child, and she's 14 years old. And I've seen this car before, but I'm not quite sure. I'm assuming, but I don't want to assume. But when a child continues to come to me, and that's close to home, and it's something that has been on my heart, and I've heard data for everything else but human trafficking. So that's something that needs to be start looking at here in Charlottesville, because it's here. You know, I understand we're dealing with ICE, but that could be a possibility of that way too, that they can come through different ways. It's not just necessarily what we see. But I definitely know that that's a priority that needs to be taken care of. And I also want to reiterate what Bellamy said about the school staffing, which was an honor and a privilege to meet with them yesterday, you know, dealing with the concerns in the school system. We definitely need them paid, because Charlottesville right now, our children in literacy, we are at the lowest of the totem pole. So we need to have those teachers in there paid so that we can have proper services for our children so they can learn. We want our kids to be successful. Not do we only want them successful, but we don't want them to, our children, especially our black and brown young men, in school to prison pipeline. Because as we putting them in school to prison pipeline, or even just juvenile system, or even coming into contact with the law enforcement, that's a hindrance to them children. So with no services being in Charlottesville for that type of, don't have no services for those children in that type of atmosphere. But we don't want to have them in that atmosphere. We want them to continue to strive and be somebody in the community. So I'm asking you that you also provide the school with more funding, because those students definitely need it, and they may need to create own programs for themselves if they feel that they can achieve what it is that they would like to see. Thank you.
Ms. Parker,
Yes.
before you leave, and you may already done this, but if you see a car following the child, call the police, call 911. Don't like.
But it wasn't following. I didn't see it following the
okay.
child. The child came to me with it, but I have seen this car myself just in the community. But when the child explained to me, so now, I'm bringing it forward to the public to let them know that this is definitely a problem now, and if anyone sees these things, because it's not obvious how they do it. If you have to actually study, and have an understanding what human trafficking is and how they go about it. Because there's been quite a few abductions here in the city of Charlottesville since, I want to say, November. So, yeah, it's definitely, you have to be definitely eyes on to actually have an understanding.
Thank you so much. Ms. Giles in the back. Ms. Giles.
Good evening, Mayor Wade and Council.
Good evening.
I'm going to keep this really short this evening. I'm Latricia Giles, and I'm the Executive Director of FAR, the Public Housing Association of Residents. I'm coming before you because, as you know, we need more housing, but we cannot solve one problem by creating another. Luxury student housing in vulnerable neighborhoods accelerates displacement. The zoning ordinance left gaps in core neighborhood protections. Those gaps need to be closed. And so, as we've been asking for months, part of the things we've been asking, limit student housing to appropriate corridors, require on-site deeply affordable units or better contributions of in lieu fees, and expand rental assistance to keep families housed. And as I heard a few weeks ago, and once again, it's been ruminating in my mind about hope is not a strategy, so I continue to say that, yes, I know that, and we need action. So that's it for this evening, and I thank y'all for listening.
I think we're over here. No, sorry, back over here. Anyone else over here like to speak? We have, how many more? 3, 4 more? 4 more. Anyone over here? Over here? Lena?
Good evening, Council. I'm here to also talk about the SROs. For those who don't know what that is, it means the police in our city schools. Since it's budget time of year, I'm going to tie it into the budget because there are a lot of different parts to this. And as a former member of the Disproportionate Minority Contact and Juvenile Justice System Task Force, I'm well aware of how police in schools can lead to the school-to-prison pipeline. There's well-established data on it. I have read it. I'm not going to try to communicate it to you. There are others who are more well-versed in that. What I am going to talk to you about is the funding and the school board and how this comes to you, right? And so, for one, police officers get a high rate of pay because they're doing dangerous work, right? They retire early. That doesn't seem like it's hanging out at the schools, right? Next, it's apparently they found the money for it, right? So they don't even have to ask to come to you to get extra funding for it. And this is the second time that the police have found money. I think the Benevolent Association put forward the money for the flock cameras, but then the police already had enough money somewhere in their budget that they didn't have to come ask you. They did talk to you about it, but they didn't have to. It sounds to me like they have a bloated budget where whenever they want to do something and not ask council about it, they already have the funding for it. And I'm all for, them doing serious detective work, but honestly, I'm hearing about these missing women from a member of our community. So I think you should take a much closer look at how the police is spending the money that they have. And And this, oh, we have extra money, it kind of gets to them bypassing oversight by city council, because they can just fund it themselves. So they don't have to ask you about it. And I also want to talk about how the school board took their vote on this. Apparently, it was at a meeting where it wasn't supposed to come up. It wasn't on the agenda. They did community engagement after the fact, after they had already passed it. And so this is exactly the kind of thing where council oversight would be very important. And so I ask you to look at that more closely. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone over here like to speak? Anyone else like to speak? We have another opportunity at the end of the meeting. Okay, I'll close the public comment at this time, and we will now have the consent agenda read.
Consent agenda number 2, January 5th, regular and organizational meeting minutes. Number 3, resolution appropriating $198,910 in additional Virginia Department of Transportation funds for construction, engineering, and inspection on the project bundle of 10th and Grady, UPC 113916, Monticello, 2nd UPC 113917, and Preston Harris, UPC 113918, second reading. 4, resolution of appropriation to amend the FY26 budget, $10,001,875.49, second reading. 5, resolution to grant $125,000 for a small business energy efficiency incentive program, one of 2 readings. 6, resolution for a compromise of claim, water and wastewater leak credit of $20,770.05 for Tiger Fuel Company.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, is everyone signed in? Okay, we can vote electronically. Okay, the motion passes 5-0. The consent agenda has been passed. We will now go to the city manager's report.
Good evening, council and members of the public. I have 3 individuals over here in the gallery who all have comments, so I get to share the wealth. I don't have to do all this by myself anymore. So we'll let them all go. James, you can go first and move on down the line.
All right, good evening, Mayor Wayne, members of council. I am pleased to report today that the payment kiosks in the 2 parking garages are now up and operational. Good. So now there's more than one way for folks to pay for their parking and use the new parking system.
Thank you. Yes, it's good news.
Yeah. Happy to take any questions on that, but it's pretty straightforward.
Yep.
All right, I have a couple of quick updates for you. One is, Mr. Sanders had mentioned it in the last meeting about the pothole blitz. We're about halfway through that at this time. It is running until March 13th, and we have, as of this morning, had 67 potholes reported to us, but we know there's far more out there, so we're looking to the public to help us identify those so we can go out and fix them. You can report those on My Cville app, or you can call 434-970-3830. The second item, I want to let everybody know that it is Fix a Leak Month. So water leaks, even a single water leak can contribute 10,000 gallons of wasted water. So that really hits people in the pocketbooks. So we're asking that people check their fixtures. We have a toilet leak detection tablets as well as universal flappers available for people. that can be picked up at the Office of Utility Billing. We're also doing a scavenger hunt, and those are due by April 13th, and there is a prize. And there's several other events that you can find at our website. It is www.charlottesville.gov/fix-a-leak. And fix-a-leak is no spaces or underscores, just all one word.
The scavenger hunt is related to Fix a Leak or a separate item? Okay.
That is related to water savings.
Got it, thank you.
Good evening, council and members of the public. I see Chief Thomas in the audience, and I know he would want me to share with you that this Wednesday, CFD is having a town hall for their strategic planning. This is really designed for community members, stakeholders, and department personnel to really come together and learn about their strategic planning process, and for everyone to provide direct input on priorities, service delivery, and community risk reduction efforts. This will be held this Wednesday, March the 4th, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at City Space, just 100 5th Street Northeast. Thank you.
All right, so again, I'm very excited the fact that I have that much help over there to get more work done. So thank you all for your items. I would like to respond to the question in regards to SROs, just for clearing up the situation. The cost of assigning 2 officers to schools is not a budgeted increase because it's using vacancies. So there is no reason for a budget increase or request. The individual officers that are being assigned to schools was the result of there being 2 positions that had not been filled, and Chief Kotches is using those vacancies to address this particular detail. And I have 2 items that just to quickly share that I'll be later making the proposed budget presentation, but on March 5th, we have a budget work session focused on revenue and expenditures, and on March 12th, a work session on outside agencies and nonprofits. Both of those are from 6 to 8 p.m. at City Space, so just making that information available to you as those events will happen before the next council meeting. That is my report.
Thank you. We're now at the action items. The first item is an ordinance amending section 2-42 of the City Code concerning special meetings of the City Council. This is the first of 2 readings. Mr. Maddox.
Good evening, councilors. John Maddox from the City Attorney's Office. This is a fairly easy item. Section 2-42 of the City Code hasn't been amended since 1976, along with a lot of provisions of our City Code, which, as we talked about, is something my office is starting to take on, and where we see deficiencies, we're going to be bringing these items to you over, I'm thinking, probably the next 6 months to a year, nearly every meeting if we can. Hopefully it'll be something that we're fixing every time. The Section 2-42 of the City Code currently includes language stating that special meetings may be held without notice if all members of council attend and unanimously consent to the business that's transacted. Now, it appears this provision was intended to address kind of internal notice issues. We want to make sure that all the council members had notice of the special meeting. However, it could also be read to imply that public notice is not required, which is inconsistent with the Freedom of Information Act and, well, a lot of other applicable state law. And so the idea with this, the proposed amendment removes that ambiguity by eliminating the no notice language entirely and expressly aligns the City Code with the state requirements, but it still preserves the principle that internal notice defects do not invalidate council action when all members are present and consent to proceed. So I'm starting light with y'all on these kinds of changes, because this is a real easy one. So my office has evaluated, and we recommend that we adopt the ordinance. It clarifies procedures for calling special meetings, it aligns the code with the requirements of state law, and it eliminates the potentially confusing or outdated language. It still preserves your practices and ensuring continued compliance with public notice and open meeting obligations. So unless you have any further questions, I will be quiet now.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments on this?
I just wanted to mention that Mr. Maddox has told us that he's going to be going through the code and finding all kinds of anachronisms.
Oh, so much.
And so we may be getting a lot of these over the next few months and years, so appreciate it.
And since the code is old, but the Freedom of Information Act was passed after several sections of the code, there's probably going to be several instances where that's a conflict.
I've got some fun ones next meeting, just wait. You're ready.
Thank you. Okay, so if there's no other questions or comments, is there a motion, or would you prefer a second reading?
It's purely up to y'all. I don't think this is a very controversial item, so I don't see the need for a second reading, but that's certainly within your discretion.
I move that City Council adopt the ordinance amending Section 2-42 of the Code of the City of Charlottesville concerning special meetings of City Council with I further move that City Council waive the requirement for a second reading of this ordinance and that this ordinance take effect immediately upon adoption.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we can vote. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The next item is a resolution designating property as a revitalization area for West Haven redevelopment. Mr. Freeze?
Okay, good evening, Mayor Wade, members of council. So the item before you this evening is to designate a revitalization area for the West Haven site, public housing site. As you all are aware and received a presentation on this at your last meeting, the site is being prepared for eventual redevelopment, and as part of that application, as part of that project, they're going to be seeking low-income housing tax credit funding to support that project. Something that supports receiving that low-income housing tax credit designation is designation as a revitalization area by the city. Something that the council has done for some of the other CRHA projects in the past. I believe John Sales is online to help answer any other questions you may have. But I'm also available if you all have any questions on that topic.
Any questions or comments on that?
I know we've adopted similar resolutions for basically every LIHTC project. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're all true.
Yes.
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 I know there's several hoops to jump through to get LIHTC funding, so this is an added layer to that.
This is covered in the packet, and we've discussed it before, but just for the community who may be watching, is there anyone who could go over kind of LIHTC applications due this March, kind of what the rough timeline and next steps will be after this?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Yes, the LIHTC application is due in March, and then we should receive an answer around June or July on whether we've received that LIHTC funding. And from that point on, we'll be working to finalize everything. So get final HUD approvals, get final city approvals from NDS, and then get final approvals from our all other financiers and grants. And so we probably still have about a year and a half before any construction would start. And of course, the relocation of residents. And so it's this is just one of the hurdles to get to the application process. But it's at least another year and a half before dirt gets moved or buildings.
Mm-hmm. So again, optimistic timeline, year and a half before construction begins for the first phase, and then it's planned to be at least 2 phases, correct?
It's planned to be at least 2 phases. The first phase includes 2 apartment buildings, and so the construction timeline for that phase is about 24 months.
Thank you.
So if there are no other questions or comments, is there a motion?
And this doesn't have to do a second reading anyway, so we can just move forward with that. I move to adopt the attached resolution to approve designating the West Haven development as a revitalization area for the project.
Second. Second, okay. We can vote on this? Is it me? Mine didn't come up yet. Yes. The motion passes, 5-0. Thank you. You have the next item, which is a financial resolution supporting the West Haven redevelopment.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this is similar to the last one. This is something that council has done a number of times for previous projects, again, to add additional support, additional points, if you will, into a low-income housing tax credit application for the West Haven property. In this case, what council is being asked is to essentially affirm the funding that was previously designated in your FY25 budget when the City Council allocated $15 million towards this project over 3 years within the capital improvement program. Those were FY26, FY27, and FY28, $5 million in each year. This funding commitment doesn't represent, it's not a formal agreement, it's not a financing agreement. That's something that we do later in the process after they've actually secured LIHTC and other funding sources. But it does offer it does formalize the indication from council that you will provide this funding, and again, as I noted, is a critical component of that application. I also will note that at the time that you guys originally, at the time that council originally allocated $15 million towards this project, it was for the entirety of the West Haven project, but as was discussed at your last meeting, at this point in time, we're anticipating that $15 million will cover phase 1, which is the 2 multifamily buildings proposed as part of that plan, and that there will be separate funding put together for phase 2, which is the townhouse component of that site plan. And again, both myself and Mr. Sales are available to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Quick question. We got the presentation. I know there's still feedback from residents happening. When does the design itself need to be finalized? No more, changes other than surprises.
So a lot of the design aspect must be solid before the application is submitted because there's scoring around porches and patios and a selection on windows and siding, roofing. And so there's a lot of different things that are really going into the initial design and application process that's really baked in. And so it's really hard to change. But then there are certain things that you can change that are a lot smaller. But a lot of the design is baked in based upon the application submission.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
I believe that we've already, in last year's, in the budget, we passed just, I guess this time last year, we put $5 million in the CIP for it, and there's another 5 for this year, the current budget.
Yep.
And the other $5 million out of the $15 million is in the budget for the following fiscal year.
That is correct.
So we've already got the money budgeted in a sense.
That is correct.
So, we recently had discussion for Kindlewood on the number of units, that we had agreed upon. I know that you said this wasn't a formal agreement. I don't know if this is for you or John, or is that set in stone, or are we still in the still planning stages of, what the makeups of the unit's going to be and things like that?
In West Haven?
Yeah.
Well, as was noted, the design is kind of an aspect of their application for the low-income housing tax credits. So, yeah, the number of units is going to be, to a large extent, locked in at the point of this application. John, would you say that's correct?
Yes, I would say that's correct. And I'll also just add that residents have worked on the site and the density and what the site looks like and figured those for at least the last 2.5 years. And that's been a lot of compromising to get to that. So I think the number is pretty set and firm.
Good.
How many units are there now?
100, yep. 126 units there currently,
And we're talking about going to 266,
266.
so more than doubling its size.
Yep, and I believe, Mr. Sales, you said there was that I believe last we spoke, you had indicated that the number we had might be wrong and that there are actually more units than what we showed in the staff report. We have 266.
Yeah, I was off by 6. It's actually going to be at the end of it, 274 units. So 146 in the first phase. There was 6 units in the senior building that was missing.
Okay, good.
Okay. So this one, we can approve this tonight. Is there a motion to approve if there's no other questions?
I make a motion to adopt the attached resolution supporting a $15 million grant to CRHA to complete Phase 1 of the project.
Okay.
Second?
Second, thank you. Thank you. The next item, the motion passes 5-0. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is general business. It's the school board adopted budget for FY '27, and Dr. Gurley will present.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Tag team.
I will be
Yeah.
accompanied by Ms. Torres, who will get us started.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mayor Wade, City Council, Mr. Sanders. Thank you for the opportunity to present this evening. This proposed budget is the result of rigorous collaborative effort between our stakeholders and central administration, reflecting the shared priorities of our schools and community. Our current strategic plan serves as both our roadmap and our blueprint, providing a disciplined framework for every budgetary decision we make. We are incredibly proud of this work and the progress that we've achieved, which we monitor closely through a dedicated data dashboard to ensure transparency and accountability. This plan centers on 4 key pillars: increasing our academic achievement, providing a culture of safety and wellness, supporting our staff, and ensuring effective and efficient operations. These focus areas work in tandem to maintain high expectations for all students and to ensure that they graduate truly life-ready. As Dr. Gurley, our superintendent, often reminds us, the most important day in a student's life is the day after graduation. This budget is our commitment to ensuring their success the moment that they leave our halls. To understand the scope of this budget a little bit better, we must look at the people that it serves. Our district is a vibrant community of 4,376 students across 11 schools, supported by a dedicated team of 914 staff members, including 507 classroom teachers. We are incredibly proud of our 86.2% staff retention rate, a testament to our supportive culture and the fact that our teachers bring an average of over 14 years of experience to their classrooms. Our diversity is one of our greatest strengths, with 40 different languages spoken in our homes. We remain committed to personalized learning, maintaining an average kindergarten through 3rd grade class size of just 14 students, which provides the foundation for our 86.9% graduation rate. These aren't just statistics. They are the daily lives of the families we serve. Now I'd like to turn the rest of the presentation over to Dr. Gurley, our superintendent.
All right.
Thank you.
And I want to make sure is our presentation being broadcast? Just because I don't see it, and I want to make sure that I'm speaking along the presentation.
I don't see that we received one.
We sent.
Who did you send it to?
I don't see it in my email or in the
Leslie sent
agenda
one
packet.
last.
All right, we can get it to her.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw a note from Ms. Thacker.
Yeah. All right. I'll continue on. All right. Good afternoon. So uniquely CCS is what the slide says. We have 4,300 students within our 10 square miles, and we are a very unique city, as Ms. Torres stated, with so much diversity on one hand and a lot of economic disparities on the other. That makes the needs unique, and for that reason, we think outside the box. Every group of students needs something specific, and we do meet those needs very specifically. If a student is not reading at grade level, we ensure that we provide those supports. If a student requires English language learner services, we support them even after they have tested out of our English language learner program. If you are high achieving, we have a vast array of AP and dual enrollment course offerings. For all students, we have career pathways meant to get them on the road that they want to be on for the day after graduation. We will always do what's right for our students, and that requires an investment. Our achievements. There's so much to celebrate within Charlottesville City Schools. The achievements you see on the screen scratch at the surface of what's happening across our school community. From expanding our AP programming to removing barriers to earning college credits through the Universal Certificate of General Studies in collaboration with PVCC, we are ensuring that all students have access to college opportunities. We ensure that all students have access to college opportunities whenever that is their chosen path. We also recognize that the school is a hub for essential needs. Through our school community model, we are serving as the conduit, connecting students and families with critical resources and supports. If you've driven down Cherry Avenue or 9th Street, you've seen that we are nearing the completion of a beautiful and innovative middle school modernization project. And we know that the pathways chosen students choose don't just begin at high school, they start much earlier. And with an innovative learning grant, our students will begin career exploration in the fields that extend beyond the traditional college-required professions. Lastly, our students, and we're on the achievement slide, and lastly, our students are excellent in the classroom and they are equally outstanding in athletics. Recently, we celebrated our tennis teams along with standout athletes Elena Pierce and Sam Palmer for their state championship wins. Next slide, please. So about our budget priorities, if down at the bottom, and we've presented this to council and workshops, at the bottom, in the bottom area, you see that our budget priorities were student support, achievement and well-being, and early childhood education. And we have connected them with our strategic plan goals, which you see at the top. Also, we had a budget priority of staff compensation and retention, which you see throughout our presentation, which aligns with our strategic plan. And lastly, we prioritize our facilities maintenance and capital improvement projects, which directly correlates with our strategic plan goals. Next slide, please. Since the presentation of this slide back in February on the 9th, during the joint session with the city council and the school board, Ms. Hoover has done some double checking of the numbers, reconciling and validating the data for support staff based on the tentative agreement. And there was a reduction of $316,000 due to termination, retirements, and transitions, promotions within staff. The total increase for the personnel costs you see here is $1,631,668. $1,631,668. Next slide, please. The non-discretionary costs. Since the presentation of this slide back on the 9th of February, Ms. Hoover and Ms. Hamill verified the city contract increases. The city revised the transportation figure down $107,000 because of reduction in fringe benefits rates. This reflects the collaborative efforts between the schools and the city to thoroughly review and validate all figures, ensuring that the most accurate budget estimates and identifying any possible reductions based on previously identified information. This means our total increase for city contracts is $362,847. Next slide, please. We've presented this slide, and since our last meeting, we do not have any increases in this slide. It remains the same. Next slide, please. The summary of our FY27 budget changes, because of the reduction in personnel costs and contracts from the city, which I previously pointed out those changes since February, the request from the city is less $423,808 than our previous meeting. In order to balance the budget, the school system is requesting a $2,569,771 increase from the city in local appropriation to support the education of Charlottesville City Schools. Next slide, please. The overall proposed FY27 budget is $123,377,481. This is an increase of $4,076,114 over the current year's budget. That concludes our budget presentation, and I welcome any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you. We've had a few work sessions with you, but there may be some questions and things have come up. So, does council have any questions for the school board?
On the state revenue, is that reflective of where the current draft state senate or house budget are, or is that reflective of the unamended budget from Youngkin?
It's reflective of the governor's proposed budget.
Okay. Do we know what that number, again, it's in flux because it hasn't passed, do we know what that number would look like with either the current draft state senate budget or House of Delegates budget?
No, we don't have any official, we don't have anything official at the state level.
Is that state revenue loss number, I've already forgot the acronyms.
LCI.
Yes. There's one with a Q. Is that what that number is? So it's a couple years,
Yes.
it's tracking a couple years later anyway?
Yes, but keep in mind that also what is what's compounding. We talked about this in one of the work sessions, that also is not working to our advantage with the LCI changes, that we had a reduction in the ADM. So our enrollment, average daily membership, that number, our enrollment number went down. So that's what negatively impacted our revenue also, with the LCI changing plus the ADM dropping.
Okay.
And that's, and remember, the enrollment shift is in alignment with what we're seeing at the state level. There's a drop in K-12 enrollment at the state level.
Did you have any other questions?
One other, so when the city negotiated our collective bargaining agreements, a component of that obviously is pay scale, and adjusting pay scale throughout the organization in alignment with agreements that have been made. So is the agreement you've reached with this collective bargaining agreement, is that reflective of the pay scale you want throughout the organization?
If I am hearing you correctly, if I'm understanding your question correctly, so what we have negotiated with CEA is that the pay scales that we want for our support staff?
Yeah, so I guess, an example for the city would be when, we reached, correct me if I'm wrong, but, when we reached an agreement, for example, with ATU on bus drivers, when the bus drivers' starting wage was increased, the pay scale adjusted along with it. So
yes.
Management pay had a kind of commensurate increase. Is that agreement reflective of where you want the full pay scale impacts to be throughout the organization?
So the work that's done within the collective bargaining is reflective, that's reflective of the support staff. So keeping in mind that our licensed staff, we did that work last school year. This work is with our support staff. And so the work we've done over the last 2 years, we had done a compensation study like the year prior, and so it is creating somewhat of an imbalance, particularly. Let's just take in let's use for example like our assistant principals. It's compressing that. So right now, it's probably not as attractive to move from a license, so being on the teacher scale, to moving to an assistant principal, because in some instances it's a pay decrease, and so we've not done any work to that scale. So what's reflective in this budget is just 3% for an administration, and so the licensed personnel scale is kind of leaving the administrative pay scale. So assistant principals, coordinators, because when you switch scales, you're going from a teacher scale, which is 200, and when you go to a 260 pay scale, your hourly rate goes down. So there's a little bit of work that's going to need to happen over time.
Yeah. No, that's helpful, because obviously the point is, I just want to try to understand what the full costs and implications are going to be, so we can plan seriously for how to get to where we want to go. I'm thinking with the city, when we did our wage and compensation study, which ended up aligning with collective bargaining, when we raised starting wages as we needed to do and we're very behind on, the total organization impact was tens of millions of dollars, and we needed multiple years to really phase in that cost. So I want to understand, are we going to be in a situation like that where the total cost is really tens of millions of dollars? And if so, we've got to really get serious about planning how we're going to get there.
Well, I mean, I will say the work that's happening here, I think you heard Ms. Taylor say earlier, I mean, that's much needed work for our support staff. And so that's the work that's being prioritized at this moment. But most certainly, we will have to come back to the table and have conversations with the school board about especially addressing what's happening at the bottom of the administrative pay scale, because we've had some very good teachers who've interviewed for some assistant principal positions who, we've seen in the last year we had to go through 5 people to get one because it doesn't cross over well now.
Thank you.
Other questions?
One question. I've heard between budget presentations a few weeks ago and then comment tonight, different answers about how much the fully funding the contract for support staff adds to the budget. How much has that added to the budget?
It's the slide.
Heard somebody today mention something like $200 and some thousand.
It's $2.7 million.
That was the marginal contractual difference, the 1.58, 1.058 is the actual total.
It's the slide. If you want to put the slide up for Mr. Snook, it's the first line. Go back one. You passed it. Keep going, right there.
I believe Ms. Torres has the clicker in front of you there.
The second slide, the second line. So which one,
That was it.
yeah, which
Yeah.
group are you looking for?
Well, apparently it was the second line. Somebody had mentioned something, or maybe I just wrote it down wrong, suggesting a number in the $200 and some thousand range earlier tonight. So,
No.
It took me by surprise.
No, that number, it's, that number
must have
has been
misheard.
roughly the same.
Okay.
Is that it, Lloyd?
That's it.
All right, great questions. Have a good one.
Oh, you're welcome to go.
For a second.
No, sorry, that was Lloyd's end of Lloyd's
Don't get too happy.
No, we're just getting started. No, I'm kidding.
Listen, I love the rapid fire questions. Thought we were done.
So we had originally gotten a $6 million request, that came down to 2.9, and now we're at 2.5, 2.6?
Yes.
0.56. So that's definitely more with the collective bargaining funded, which is, I know what we were hoping. But that is a significant step down. And the explanation we got for the savings, the original first cut was that was Walker getting reconfigured, and so there was some vacancy savings because positions were being cut, that sort of thing.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering why that wasn't factored into the first presentation. Was it because we weren't sure of the Walker timeline? Was it something else? Was it just?
So if this may be right before your time. So the first meeting that we have in the budget process now did not exist until Mr. Sanders came on board, and the board, our school board, really wanted us to start this process earlier. And so in the initial part of this, when we're doing this budget process, we don't know what state revenues look like. When we first started this process, when you got this $6 million, we are still working through VRS numbers. When we first start this process, we are looking at like all of the budget requests. And what happens between that first meeting, is the first meeting November or December? November? December. What happens between that December meeting and right now is we are combing the budget request. We are generally looking at what those requests are, but by time we meet, it's still too early to like make those finite decisions about like what we're going to keep in and what we're going to keep in and what we're going to move out. So some of those things we do some repurposing of positions and things on that end. I mean, it's really about being good stewards and not transferring the cost on to the public. And so there is There was in that first presentation, there was the bonus for Walker, which you're referring to, that was baked in. And so a lot of things changed between now and then, and with the priority of, it said compensation. So like, how can we make the collective bargaining work? How can we make the compensation for administrative staff? You see the benefits component of it. So we go through a lot of iterations, and there's a lot of meetings to get to where we can balance the budget and bring you all something that we feel okay with. So hopefully, did I get all your
Thank you.
thoughts? Okay.
I appreciate the meetings that we've had leading up to this, both the public ones and the individual conversations I've had with teachers and school board members, so that we know kind of what all the different pieces are. And the budget request slide with all the different positions noted, there was a lot of good stuff on there. And so it was good getting to see the thoughtfulness and the specificity of how these are going to be beneficial for students and the programs that we're trying to implement.
Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Jen?
Thank you for putting this together again and again and again. That's very helpful. How, with the conversations with the budget, and just because my question was similar to Natalie's about how the number fluctuates so much, because we get it so late in the process. Like, we're given the 2.5, but how the sausage is being made is not, our purview. But does the city is the city part of those discussions in those early days, or it always comes this late, or not late, but where do we jump in usually?
I think the process has evolved. Ms. Hamill and Mr. Sanders are, they have been very good collaborative thought partners with us. I think we do a great job of saying the main thing is the main thing. So we are trying to get to the finish line, and we want you all to be able to meet us where we are so that we can fulfill the needs of the school division, ensuring that we are meeting our student needs. And so I think that they always will say, hopefully they will say that they always see the direction that we're going. The goal is to never, I don't want to promise something to our stakeholders that we can't deliver. And so I'm always saying, hey, the number's actually going to be higher. And we've had years where it's been like that prior to you coming on council. The number looks like it's going to be a little higher. Or we get to say, like, hey, I think we're really going to be able to bring that number down. And we have regular check-ins. Mr. Sanders and I meet, Ms. Hamill and Ms. Hoover meet. And so I think we're just great collaborators throughout this process. And yes, and then we get close to this meeting and you're seeing the new number. Yes.
When you're talking about that number that's going down, is that from the percent that we automatically allot? Is that, I think is it 40%?
40% of the real estate assessment.
Of the real estate assessment? Is that where you're starting, or?
Yeah, and I think we've always been higher than that number.
Yes, you have.
And I think, if Mr. Meyer if he were standing at the podium, he would say that we need to look at doing something different with that. But yes, we've been higher than that number. We've been higher than that number.
And then one last question.
Sure.
Just thinking about having advocates for parks here, is there another, besides the state and the city, is there another funding source, like a foundation or anything, that supports this kind of large number, big work, or is that really it?
I mean, Mostly it's you all, and you all have seen that in the slide that, you know, you all are a big part of where our money comes from. We do have some, we are fortunate enough that we do have some private donors, and that takes care of some of those smaller programmatic things. But I mean, you all are it.
Thank you for explaining that. Appreciate it.
We're that foundation.
We're the foundation. Well, you know, it's like, it seems like
Yeah.
if anyone wants to give to schools, this is the public announcement.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. You said, Jen?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. 16 years of doing it. I feel you understand where you're coming from. So.
Yeah.
So.
And
thank you.
I do want to say before I sit down, I heard the Parks and Rec conversation earlier, and so this is an interesting year with reconfiguration, and so I know that Parks and Rec, I mean, they provide a vital service to our community, particularly our summer programming. And with that said, you know, what happens this summer it's really hard on all fronts. I know that they are looking for space, and I know that space is definitely a premium this summer. We are displacing our middle school programming, and that will be at K-Tech this summer. We're going to try to squeeze our middle school summer school programming into K-Tech. And we have lighting projects going on, and we can't put fifth grade classrooms in pre-K classrooms, so buildings are like doing these puzzle pieces. And so, I mean, I'm going to still work with Mr. Sanders and being a thought partner, but we recognize that this summer is a summer that will look a lot different than it has historically, because we always try to be good collaborators, definitely on space, because the Parks and Rec provides a vital service to our community. But we recognize that it is hard. So I think the thing people are feeling about this summer, it's real, but we have reduced what elementary school looks like for summer school, and everything's being scaled down. But it's definitely noted.
Is that something you see as a permanent thing or just a one-year thing?
No, it's just this summer. Like I said, it's just this summer. It's just because of the reconfiguration, and it's like we have to get the pre-K kiddos squared away with the Walker building, and then every single building is going to do some shifting.
Sure.
And then we had to reduce the size of our elementary summer school program. Our elementary program is so small that it's basically the equivalent of 4 students per grade from each school. There are 4 slots for each school per grade. That's how small it will be this summer. And so,
as opposed to how many?
So we will only
Last
have
year.
125 students total for elementary school, and that number has definitely, we've offered that to as much as up to 200 students. So it is significantly less.
I also do want to just note that while, you know, the daily breakfast lunch service was interrupted during the snowstorm, there was a contingent of volunteers and school board members who still came out on some of the days to provide lunches.
Oh, yes.
And though it wasn't normal service, I do want to just give them a shout out for helping fill in that gap.
Absolutely, thank you.
And I believe Dr. Gurley was there every day.
Yep, I was there every day. Yep, and it was. We served a lot of folks. Our school board members volunteered. We had school staff drive from Orange, you know, to come here and serve meals during the closure. And so we think it was very effective, and we most certainly met the needs of many of our students and their families.
And I know it wasn't 100% coverage, but I didn't want that to go unrecognized.
Yeah,
I
thank
appreciate
you.
that effort.
We appreciate what y'all do every day, and you're a main part of what makes this city special, and we look forward to the discussion, the debate that we will have as council and hear from the public over the next, 6 weeks or so, and thank you so much.
Yep, prioritize the schools. Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Sanders, is now the city's budget.
No pictures, just teasing, just teasing. All right, so I have a lot to go over, so just get comfortable. Just want to start off with good evening, Mayor, councilors, members of the public. Tonight we engage in an important discussion about the people's work as it has been entrusted to us on their behalf. We have an awesome responsibility to do what we can to serve them well, meet their needs, and reflect their values in the work that we do. I do want to start by thanking the team who support me in standing here. The budget is the result of a budget team who has been working since August of last year. They and the revenue team have managed a number of considerations needed to prepare the guardrails used to make the many decisions that are required. Our lead team, which is our directors of 10 city offices, 12 departments, and 6 constitutional offices, have all worked with their teams to produce budgets and generate requests to support their work in service to the public. And I want to also recognize the advisory boards and commissions who weighed in with their recommendations as designed. This too is public engagement as they serve to provide perspectives that staff rely on. And for those who participated in the City Manager's Budget Series in January, I thank you for joining us and for participating in that process. Over 3 nights, you experienced the challenge of local government budgeting. I decided to share that experience with you. With the return to my favorite board game, Monopoly. That is a version of participatory budgeting, and we will share the results again tonight because I promised to make sure that we reflected on that as we put this city's budget together this year. And lastly, a special thanks to my friend in the back, Chrissy Hamill, who led the Office of Budget and Grants Management team through this process. Brian, Lauren, Taylor, thank you as well for sharing your long days, nights, and weekends for this budget because that's what it requires. So this is what we're going to do this evening. We have 5 different areas of this presentation that I'm going to walk you through. We'll start at the top with vision and planning because everything starts there. It should be where we always begin our process for determining how we would expend any resources available to us. Then we'll go into breaking down the budget. We'll make this a heavy topic and accessible for those that are interested. Councilor Fleischer, because this is your first time, it's your fault that this is as long. No, I'm just teasing. I'm going to go into a little more detail for your benefit, but I also just appreciate the moment that this could be the first time that someone engages with the conversation about the city budget. So my goal is to not shortchange them. So I'm going to take a few moments to go through a whole bunch of slides tonight. And then we'll talk about the proposed budget. So I will not bury the lead. I will let you know where we stand and what has been balanced and presented to you this evening. And then we'll talk about what's next, and that's just a quick look at what the next steps are in regards to getting to the budget being adopted on April 9th. So when we start with vision and planning, when we talk about what was, we look at our last plan was developed for FY 2018 through 2020, and we moved the plan forward 2 additional years because we just were not in the right state at that time to begin a strategic planning process because we had a lot of movement going on in my office specifically, but as well as other parts of this organization. So we were able to get through a 5-year period with that plan plus an additional 2 years to be able to keep the organization moving. In 2022, we initiated a new strategic planning process, and in August of 2023, Council adopted a new framework anchored with a set of strategic outcome areas and a commitment to JEDI, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, that has served as our roadmap since. What is, and that is where we are today, we are in the 3rd year of what I've identified as a 3-year plan that aligns with my tenure as city manager. So from FY23 to FY26, this has been a period of, I should say FY24 through FY26, this has been a period of major organizational shifts, and frankly, a period of the fire hose being on full blast with little relief. And that is until we slow down, reset, and that is what we're doing right now. What could be for us is a 5-year plan that comes next and will be a tool to galvanize the team and produce a renewed effort to engage with the public in serving their needs, and a closeout report on the 3 prior years will be released this summer. Jen Hendrick, the city's first Chief Strategy Officer, will present to council this summer a preview of her work to build in the confidence that this government is going through in trying to measure, assess, and report on its work. A strategic plan is a result of consciously capturing where do you want to go, how do you get there, and what are you doing to make it happen, and most importantly, by when. There are component parts to this process, so I'll just run through those very quickly. A mission, that is the mission of the City of Charlottesville. In our process of moving from a 3-year plan to a 5-year plan, we're keeping it. We think it says exactly what it needs to say. Vision, we all have started to say this on a regular basis, to be a place where everyone thrives. And I always add emphasis on everyone. And that means that it's that much harder for us to achieve it. Our values, these are the values that we highlight for our staff and we ask them to model on a daily basis. All new employees, when they go through orientation today, they hear from me or one of my stand-ins, and we make sure that we put this slide up and we say to them, welcome to the city. This is what we need you to do. We have a commitment to community prosperity. We made a shift to that just in this current state of the climate and the relationship that we have with the federal government. Equity, by another name, still focuses on the idea that outcomes-based work is disrupting the status quo, and that's really what this is all about. We have 9 strategic outcome areas. You all know that I have had a weird relationship with this list of 9, saying that it's too many, too many, too many. However, you have said, it's okay, Sam, you can get through that. So we have tried to press on. And this is also where I stop and always remind you all that we are a community that punches above its weight class. And I like the way that sounds, so that's the reason why I keep saying it. And ultimately what it just means is that we really have a commitment to a variety of things, and we just have to figure out how best to address and approach them. So as I pointed out to you, there's a 3-year plan that we are wrapping up now. That 3-year plan, I framed it around my comments to you. As each year I produced a work plan, and each year I've come up with a theme for the work plan. The first year was strength and stability. Next was communication, coordination, and collaboration. And this current year is about implementing our plans. The goal that I see is that we want to make sure that we are being responsive to the needs that the community has identified. We're responsive to your request and how we get this work done and what specifically we get done. And I have a responsibility to make sure that this team has everything that they need to do the job to the best of their ability. That is a lot to balance, but we've been doing well in that space, and we'll continue to do that. And we're shifting into a 5-year plan next, and it's going to be framed around the idea of 5 strategic goals that we ask you all to take a look at in January, and you successfully reduced what I wanted you to focus on. So now we're going to actually shift everything in our new strategic plan to focus on those 5 strategic goals, and organizational excellence is how we do it. So that now means that I don't have a list of 9 anymore, I have a list of 7. So I thank you for your cooperation in getting me to a shorter list. And with that, we will focus on elevating the conversation to these 5 goals, and we'll do our best to make sure that we achieve those goals or come very close to them by the end of our next 5-year period. So now I'll shift to talk about the economic outlook, because in order for us to figure out how to do the things that we need to do, we always have to take stock at where we are in our region, in this area, with what's going on around us. So this is a slide that we've used to just kind of give a quick snapshot of Charlottesville by the numbers. Our general fund budget this year is a little over $265 million. Our 10.2 square miles is who we are, what we got, and it won't be changing. 2.6% is our unemployment rate. That continues to track better than the state and better than the national average, and that's what you want the result to be. And we've been using the number of 51,743 residents, but we just recently heard that the Weldon Cooper Center has updated their methodology, and that number has dropped back down to more like 46,000 or so. So I have a meeting on my calendar to have some conversation with some folks, because I like a bigger number than that. So we'll see what comes out of that. And then I also wanted to share a few slides from the recent State of the Community that the Chamber put on. I was one of the speakers, but Hamilton Lombard has become a very interesting feature of this particular process. And I have 3 slides from his presentation that I lifted, but I'm still giving him credit for. that I wanted to just share with you. That this is just a reminder of where we are in our community as it relates to economics. And the economics all feed into how this city government operates, where the money comes from, and how it can go out, which is why we want to frame the conversation around that. When you look at this wage distribution chart, what you see is in the middle, you see a gap. You see it drop dramatically to the number of people who earn anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000. That's our middle income population. And what's most important about that is the middle income population are the people who have disposable incomes, and they're the ones that are spending the money in places that we actually get access to so that we can use it to take care of various needs. That is hard for a community like this where there's a missing middle, and that missing middle is where we also find that there are limits to the resources that we're going to have access to as time goes on, unless we turn that around. What we also see is that when you look at the red marks on this particular part of the map, all centered on the eastern seaboard for the most part, these are the highest income, the median values are the highest in these areas, and I put a circle around where Charlottesville is because we are one of the highest. And that in itself speaks to the challenge that exists for those that are living in our community and trying to manage when things are that tight and that difficult. And then lastly, the slide that I also took note of is that the left side of this chart is in 2010, there was a smaller conglomeration of where our people actually reside because they had to move outside of the city to be able to afford. And in 2023, that range got a lot bigger. So individuals are now traveling farther and farther in, and it's getting that much harder for them because they have to go farther in order to maintain affordability. I will offer that as people move out, it complicates how we serve because they are not here in the community and able to connect fully. And they also may have to continue to move because they're trying to stay in a place that they can actually thrive.
And traffic.
And it creates traffic. So now we'll break down the budget. And in breaking down the budget, there are a couple of key parts. The general fund is what we're going to focus on tonight. That's where most of the conversation goes. We have enterprise funds, and those are self-generated funds where they're putting revenue in, therefore they're taking the expenses out. We have a capital improvement plan that we'll spend a little time talking about, and then there are other funds where money is constantly moving. I am a person who very much appreciates the idea of discipline, so I always start with framing the conversation about a budget, that it is a plan of how you will spend and save over a period of time. And I always point out how important saving is because there's always going to be a rainy day and you have to plan for it. I think what we got to make sure that we do is that we don't attempt to spend everything that we have because we don't know when something's around the corner. Balancing the budget is my responsibility. It is the chief responsibility, I would say, as the city manager. I was laughing with Councilor Fleischer that this is my big night because I get to come and bring to you how hard it has been to balance a budget. But the budget is balanced, and there are only two ways that we could do that: increasing revenue and decreasing expenses. Those are only two choices, and I've looked under every seat cushion trying to find an alternative, and there isn't one. Those are the two things that you have to do. So where does our revenue come from? It comes from property taxes and various other taxes that we have. It comes from intergovernmental arrangements, fee for services, federal and state funds as well. Those are the things that we have to spend a lot of time tracking. That's what the revenue team does on a regular basis. They're constantly taking a look at how are the numbers shifting over the course of the year. These are our current tax rates, 98 cents on real estate, 7% on meals tax, 9% on lodging, and $4.40 for every 100 on personal property tax. Our assessments, based on the work that was done by the assessor's office, and our assessor, David Milton, recently shared that report with us. Our average value of residential property in 2026 is $548,800. That is big. That is big for a lot of people. That also reflects a residential assessment increase of 4.27%, combined with commercial, that is 3.42%. And all that means is it just gets that much harder for those to be able to pay their tax bill. We also get revenue sharing funds from the county, and we thank them for their big check that they have to write to us. And we don't spend a whole lot of time talking about it because not everybody likes it. But we get the money, and I make sure that we spend it wisely. So a little over $20 million is what we received as a part of that relationship. It's part of the 1982 agreement, which is why we don't really talk about it that much because it's been around for a long time. And there are only 3 ways for it to go away, and we're not going to talk about that. So The city manager's proposed budget is where I'm going to focus right now. And what I'll also say to the members of the public is the budget book, as is in front of council today, is 389 whopping pages of a lot of information. If you don't have anything to do with your time and you want to figure out how to go to sleep, pick up the book. It'll put you to sleep, I promise you. But there's a lot of great information in there, and if you really want to engage with the budget, then you can start thumbing through it. But I'll tell you that there are 11 pages, and it's an executive summary written by myself, worked on with our budget director. That is a way for you to just take a look at, this is the highlight of the proposed budget. So if you spend time reading that 11-page document, you get a good sense of what's going on in the 389 pages. So our total proposed FY27 revenues are $531 million. That is a lot of money, and most people don't hear that number. They might actually begin to hear it a little more often than they have in the past, because we usually focus on the general fund budget, which is in the 200 range. But that 531 adds in our utility services that we run and operate ourselves, and a whole bunch of other dollars that are more earmarked and a little more directive and specific in how they're used. But the budget that this local government is managing is $531,778,435. And then we spend all the money on all these things, with the city government operations taking almost half of that. But we also, as you just heard from the superintendent, $129 million, I wish it were that small, $129 million goes to city school expenditures. And then we also have utility operations, debt service, and capital projects. Our budget drivers, these are the things that really take up a lot of time, attention, and resources, the way that we've started to define this term of what is a budget driver. They are the top allocation of financial resources. It does not equate to importance. It just means that it's a priority. Therefore, we spend more time and attention there, and in most cases, we end up spending more money there. And here we go with the city manager's budget form results. I wanted to start there and just kind of frame how the numbers actually ended up working out. But we had 10 different stations around the room in 3 different locations back in mid-January, I should say. We gave the public the 9 strategic outcome areas and the commitment that council has as a part of its strategic framework, and asked them to spend $10,000 in Monopoly money wherever they thought it was important or was a priority for them, or they felt that additional funds would be needed to do more things. And the results of that came out with education at the top, which I know that the members of our school board who were present probably stuffed the box a little bit, but they actually appreciated seeing that result. Public safety came in second, transportation in third, and housing in fourth. So I want you to remember those 4 as we go through the rest of this presentation. So then the FY27 proposed budget highlights. The general fund total is $277,175,674. That is $11.9 million in growth over the prior year. That is just reassessments and tax results and various other revenues that come in that produced an additional $11.9 million over last year. That's 4.5% growth. Our capital improvement program for this proposed FY27 is $47 million, and the 5-year CIP is $196 million, of which $147 million is eligible to be funded by bonds. It's important for us to think about that as well, because that's a good split of cash versus debt, so that we would not be able to do things if we had to rely on more cash. Debt service is $20 million, so we have a lot of work that we need to do. That last bullet on the right side about department budget cuts, over the course of trying to pull this budget together, and yes, it was hard, and the mayor asked me, this is my 3rd budget that I presented, and he said, which one is the hardest? This one. Why? Because I'm doing it right now. That's why it's the most difficult one. I'll move past it and probably won't call this one the hardest one after we get ready to start working on next year. And Ms. Hamill is probably nodding her head in the back, because we already know that there's some challenges coming. But what we had to do in this process is I did have to return to the departments and ask for budget cuts in order to make numbers work, because as we tried to get the numbers to come together, they just didn't do it. So for that, we did have a few departments who were able to go back into their budgets and make a few revisions, and those revisions produced another $500,000 that we were able to deploy differently. All right, so in managing our workforce allocations, we've converted some vacancies to new uses. We've converted temps and lump sums to permanent positions. We've defined some lump sum allocations for accurate budgeting, and we currently have 1,123 city employees. There were only 5 new positions added to this budget. There were a number more of requests, and you've heard about some of those this evening, but the 5 that were able to make the cut was a part-time recovery court officer, which is a mandate that we had not been able to fill prior. The Commonwealth's attorney has an additional staff attorney, but that staff attorney was a result of mostly offset by changes to their base budget. Tax relief specialists to continue to work on our tax relief program specifically because as we have had challenges and the need has grown, we have had more work that now requires an additional set of hands to manage it. And the Human Services Department is absorbing 2 licensed clinicians that currently support the anchor team, but they were a part of the pilot. So those 2 individuals that have been working with them were funded on one-time resources as a part of the pilot. So we're now realizing the expense by bringing them on board. So you see that is not very much different in what we're currently doing in the way of operations, but 4.5 people is all that we were able to add to this year's budget, to this proposed budget. This is a few highlights of our budgeting for the tax relief programs. These all came from the Commissioner of Revenue. The dollar amounts that you see there are the dollar amounts in each of those categories that he requested that have been budgeted. They are included in this budget. And then the projected beneficiary numbers just shows you how many people that we are able to interrupt the challenges that they face as it comes to paying rent in some instances and taxes in others. And transforming transit, that's one of the big highlights of the budget this year. There's a $2.2 million increase, as you see on the right-hand side. This is the commitment that council indicated that they want me to figure out how do we make it fit into the budget. So $2.2 million, and that is adding 10 drivers, adding support personnel to support their efforts to be deployed, keeping zero fare so that riders can just get on the bus and go wherever they need to go, and absorbing the impacts of the collective bargaining agreement, which is an additional $354,000 for the next year. So the cap budget is a little over that $9 million of the city share and county share local. That's the split. But again, just thinking about what the conversation has been around transit, we want to optimize this system and service. And in order to do that, we were able to work through the consultants that we've been working with to update what it requires to reach optimization, and that is 40 additional drivers to reach the peak of what it is that we would like to offer. And for that, what we would get is more 15-minute service in a lot of places and 30-minute service everywhere else. And we can discontinue allowing 60 and 75-minute service to be a part of this system, which has gone on for way too long. The 4-year plan is really focused on increasing frequency, reliability, to raise our ridership levels, to secure more funding, and to achieve optimization. But 40 new drivers and support personnel and all the other expanded costs that come with that cannot be absorbed in 1 year, and it is why I pitched to council a 4-year plan. So I'm already, and Ms. Hamill is already aware that for each of the next 3 years, we will be prioritizing what is the impact for transforming transit as a part of each of those budgets.
Because that would include not just drivers, but also buses.
That's right.
And we've got the application for an expanded home facility, which would include more space and more mechanical,
So this is the focus on what we can do just in this next year, and each year it will look, this chart will look a little bit different each time over the next 3 years. There'll be different things that there might be more in the way of buses that we need to buy and other things that we need to do, and fewer staff, but there will always be a driver line, an increase in drivers. 10 drivers is actually a reach for us. We have not actually been able to have that many drivers, that many vacancies at one time and then try to fill them in this market. I am concerned about the idea that we might not be able to actually recruit 10 drivers by the time I'm at this podium presenting next year's budget, but the goal will be that we're going to try really hard. And this is really the first effort of trying to see if 40 new drivers is what we need, then we can pretty much plan 10, 10, 10, 10 over the next 4 years.
Do you want questions now or do you want them at the end?
Let's hold them.
Okay.
Because I might be able to answer.
I can sense you're on a roll, and so I don't want to.
Yes. You mess with my flow. All right, so supporting our schools, you just heard from the superintendent. I definitely want to make sure that I share with you the update on what we have processed over the course of the past few months. As you heard, the original ask, and you were all asked questions about that, was $6.4 million. We start the process with the school board and the superintendent giving us the number. We don't give them a number, they give us the number first. And the goal is to not interfere with their planning and their recommendation as to what their needs are, or the identification of what their needs are. I do start with the formula. That is the difference in how we put the budgets together. Because when I got here and I asked the questions about how do we come up with the number for schools, and the answer was, well, we have a formula. It was an agreed upon approach to being able to identify how do we increase funds to the school system, and it is 40% of the increased real estate assessment is what we allocate to schools. So what I did in receiving the number from Ms. Hamill, that was roughly $1.5 million. I thought about some of the conversations that the superintendent and I had, and I added to that and came up with the number that I gave to her to plug into the budget, because as we started preparing the budget, we had a double-digit gap. So the goal was to try to figure out how can we mitigate that gap and put the budget together and get it to balance, because all of that was the expectation. So the number that I gave to the superintendent was $2 million. And that in itself proved to be untenable, because 6.4 was the number that they started with and 2 was the number that I started with. So that means the gap was pretty big. Over the course of the conversations that you all had with the school board, and you were able to work through that, and they too were able to go back and look, we got that number down to $2.9 million, and it has since now dropped to $2.56 million. So that is the number that is baked into this budget. So if the budget goes through as prepared at this time, $2.569 million is what goes to the school system as their local match. We also
additional 2.5.
Additional, that's correct, an additional $2.569 million. We have also continued, made sure that there were no changes, because a part of this process is that we're not just looking at operating support. We revisit the CIP every single year, even though we produce a 5-year CIP. We have to shore up that year's CIP, and in that process, sometimes we make adjustments. Well, I'm just pointing out to you here that we did not make adjustments to the capital improvement initiatives line or the maintenance and improvements line as well. So that $1.4 million and $1.3 million per year for the next 5 years is maintained. And there is a CIP adjustment for the design and pre-construction of the pre-K center, which is now officially confirmed to be back at Walker. It will occur at Walker because the Oaklawn property is not available to us to be able to do what we would like to do there. So our capital development division is back now working on activating a pre-K center at Walker. And we made adjustments to put design funds earlier, but we have not increased the amount of money that has been prior allocated. Then affordable housing is another one of our big categories. So transit, schools, and affordable housing. We have $11.5 million in FY27. Some of those funds, as you just heard about, is West Haven. So $5 million over $5 million a year for 3 consecutive years, with $1.7 million total allocated for Friendship Court Phase 3 and infrastructure improvements. You just approved $700,000 added to 501 Cherry, which we added to the FY28 CIP, because that is when they needed it. And we anticipate roughly $500,000 for HUD entitlements. We won't know that until late May, early June, when we hear from HUD, and we pray that they don't make changes to the program, because that number might go down. And we have an interest payment for acquisition of the Carlton Mobile Home Park, which is spread out over 5 years, so small payments and then a big balloon at the end. That is still the case. Ms. Hamill made some adjustments based on getting additional information in regards to that, the amortization schedule on that particular item. And then our housing program funding remains level, so we did not make any changes to the CAF and HOPS programs or the SISRAP program, our supplemental rental assistance program, which receives $900,000 a year and is managed by CRHA. And we have ongoing supports that continue through this budget for BRAC, the Blue Ridge Area Coalition for the Homeless. So that's $250,000 focused on capacity building. $500,000 for the support of a low barrier homeless services center, which we have been talking about and will continue to talk about, and more details to come shortly. And continue to maintain a revenue, and that should say revenue replacement, not revenue, for the Salvation Army if the thrift store were to convert to a shelter at some point, because that conversation is still open.
So that's a bookmark.
That's a bookmark.
Thank you.
Yes, protecting our community, so that's public safety. So we have added $646,000 for ACRJ's debt service for the jail renovation. I've mentioned already the absorption of the 2 additional anchor staff members. We have additional seats added for KIP. Counselor Payne, you really put me on the spot at their event and said we need to put more money into the program, so I did. And we have additional opportunities to support programming work in our human services space with the restructuring and adding human services within our public safety programming and under the watchful eye of Mr. Roman. And we had operational increases across each of these organizations. We absorbed those increases, so we did not send back any reductions on the requests that they all pose for the services, the important services they provide. Investing in the community, the Vibrant Community Fund continues to receive $2.3 million. We received 66 applications requesting over $5 million, so that you see it's never enough money to do all the things. 22 of the other applications that came in are in the the culture and arts space, and those are now in my office to be awarded funding out of the Quality of Life Fund, which is a one-time fund that I continue to manage. We have maintained $1 million for the Pathways Fund, but I will point out that we were able to make a slight increase in direct aid. We were able to cut down on some of the operating expenses because that $1 million is not direct aid only. It is the team who operate the program as well as the direct aid. So we were able to add a little bit of funding to go out to touch individuals who need that assistance. And then I just again highlight for you the bike ped infrastructure that appears in this budget because we are continuing to work on converting urgent infrastructure to quick bills work with Ben Chambers. New sidewalks has been prioritized with big numbers across the 5-year CIP, which you'll see when we get into that space. And we have added a right-of-way acquisition line because we're going to continue to press on Dominion to move poles and take away some of our ADA barriers that are around the city. And we need to be able to get the right-of-way in order for them to have a place to move the pole. Tax relief. Because we know that people are having difficulties, we've been running a tax relief program for a little while now. So I did a 5-year snapshot on the relief programming just to kind of show you this is what we've been able to do. Over that 5-year period for rent relief, 1,127 individuals have received assistance. Those are not unique individuals. That's over the 5-year period in total, but $741,000 went out in aid in that manner. $7.2 million went out for tax relief for elderly and disabled individuals. The CHAP program has spent $4.8 million. And then our disabled veterans and surviving spouse tax exemption has been $902,000. And I'll just point out at the bottom there that our real estate tax relief average amount is $3,800, and the CHAP grants range from $1,000 to $2,500 based on income. And that is providing direct relief to individuals who are having trouble in what we have already established is a challenging market for affordability. So we continue our work in enriching our community. We have $500,000 in our CIP to remove access barriers and assets at our existing assets and parks. There's $500,000 a year over the 5-year CIP to implement the Parks Master Plan. That is nowhere near what it's going to take. We're going to continue to work with our team to identify at what stage is capacity going to meet resources that we have, and we may have to make some changes there. You heard from the Parks and Rec Advisory Board members who have been focused on this issue. And while this budget does not reflect a lot in that space, we do believe that we will be able to go back over the next few years and really magnify those numbers based on what things we can actually accomplish and get those things done, because the master plan was, if I'm remembering correctly, $70 million? Or am I thinking, or is it more? I don't remember.
I believe it was $78 million.
$78 million to implement the plan as designed. And again, that's not something we can do in 1 year. That's going to be more than 5 years, I would even say, based on where other things are also being situated in the course of budgeting. So we have to continue to work to identify what makes sense. We're adding $140,000 to your Strategic Initiatives Fund, so remember that. Each year, my goal is to take whatever the balance is, which right now is $360,000, add another $140,000 to give you a $500,000 discretionary fund, because when you have your work session on March 12th, you're going to be tempted to make changes to the Vibrant Community Fund results, and this is where you make changes from your fund and only your fund. So we'll have to go through that process, and that will begin in July, the same as when the Vibrant Community Funds are released. And then identify some additional work that's been done in supporting school playgrounds, which are not just for schools, but also for the community as our campuses are open, and downtown mall infrastructure, as well as the tree management plan, each have line items in our CIP. As I pointed out earlier, in our intergovernmental space, these are multi-jurisdictional agreements, state mandates, and critical services. They all had operational increases. This identifies what those are. And they vary from a variety of reasons, but most of them are based on changes to salaries and compensation packages for their staff. As it regards to the SPCA, we have a new agreement that went into effect last year. We went from $13 per capita to $16 per capita. That's a part of the negotiated transition, so we knew that that was coming. And then we have increases for shifting one of our programs that was in human services to OAR. So a big part of that $100,000 increase is just moving money from one place to another. Our fundamental category, these are organizations that have been designated by the city manager to provide a unique, unduplicated service to the residents of the city of Charlottesville. Two of those have been increased dramatically, CRHA and FAR. CRHA moved from $137,000 a year to $300,000 a year, and FAR from $66,000 a year to $125,000 a year. Neither of those numbers match what they requested, but both of those numbers indicate the seriousness in which the city is working to try to support organizations that are working hard for certain populations in our community who struggle. And this is an acknowledgement and a recognition of the work that they're trying to do. So the goal is to just make sure that we can continue to beef up the relationship and therefore reach more people. And then the Jefferson School item there is just the continued support. The only request that they make is funding to cover their rent allocation because they're able to receive funds for other things, and it doesn't cover that particular item. So the adjustment just reflects the increase in the rent that they have because there's a rider that changes each year. Employee benefits is a very expensive aspect of our budget. Our total cost of our healthcare benefits is $22.7 million, and our pension plan is $17.9 million. Those are big numbers. $1.6 million increase for healthcare and a $2 million budget savings on our pension plan is really how we were able to mitigate some of the impacts there. But just pointing out that these are very, very expensive propositions as it relates to managing the workforce. In our compensation, this budget includes a 2% step increase and a 2% pay scale adjustment for unaffiliated workforce. Unaffiliated, and I've had people ask me, what does unaffiliated mean? That means you're not a part of a union, you're not represented by a union, you're not in a collective bargaining contract, so that's everybody else. So there's a 4% increase coming to those individuals, and we have a 1% retiree COLA baked into this budget as well. And our collective bargaining contracts are reflected here. They are not the same. That is what collective bargaining means when you have multiple contracts. They each come to the table and they negotiate for the things that they prioritize, and the result is that it's not exactly the same because what they need and want are not always the same. So our CFD pay scale will change with a request to also align their anniversary date, which comes at a 2.9% increase and a step increase of 2%. Police will get a 4% increase related to their anniversary date realignment and a 3% step increase. Our transit drivers will get anywhere from 3 to 5% based on the position. That's all related to the contract that they signed as well, and a 2% increase for operators. And then our public works, parks and rec, utilities, and a few of our personnel that were in the police and fire department will receive a 2% increase as it relates to their contract through the Teamsters Union. And I wanted to just provide you just a little detail as to where we are with collective bargaining. Having 4 contracts is quite a pickle that you have put us in with having us have this many contracts to manage. We're in a perpetual state of constantly negotiating. That is the reality. We finish one and we move to the next one, and sometimes we have 2 at the same time. That is how we have to work. We've had to add additional staff, and we continue to maintain outside help just to keep all the balls in the air. But I just wanted to point out to you where we are with each of the current 4 unions that we have. The fire department, we did a wage reopener so that we only talked about wages for the next fiscal year. That new contract has been signed. I just signed it actually last week, and it goes into effect in July. Labor and Trades contract, we're in year 2 of 4, and they will negotiate a new contract that will start in FY '29. So we'll start that process in FY '28. The Police Department has reached a new 3-year contract for FY '27 through '29. It was a bit of a hill to climb, but we got it done. And I'm waiting the contract now so that I can sign it, and I hope they hurry up and bring it to me, so I hope they're listening. And our transit contract, we're in year 3 of 3, so we'll be negotiating a new contract with them next year that will start FY '28. Our policies as it relates to the management of our resources, we have policies that have been adopted. We have been following these policies for quite some time. And what I'd just like to simply say is that while some may look at these as conservative, I look at it as a pragmatic approach to making sure that we are disciplined in our work and that we hold on to what makes us look attractive to the rating agencies who set our bond rating. We are AAA for a reason, and this is a big reason. We're AAA as well because we are continuing to find ways to do things with other resources and not go over the cliff. And I keep reminding us over and over that we're on a runway and we're flying a jumbo jet. Our runway is shorter than we think it is, so we have to constantly revisit that. And I will continue to press on that with the truth about what I see, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that later as well. Also within our management priorities, we transfer big numbers and a lot of numbers from our general fund to other purposes. $15.8 million to debt service. That's based on decisions that we've made on how we finance various improvement projects that we're working on. And it requires $15 million in cash right out of the general fund off the top. $8.4 million to the capital improvement program because that is going to help us pay for the work that we've identified in the capital improvement program for that next year. And then we have other funds for services that we provide through Human Services, Social Services, and the Children's Services Act, which are all policy-related mandates through the state. This is our capital improvement program over the next 5 years. It's $196 million. We highlighted for you the top 3, education, transportation, and affordable housing. You've heard those before. So $55 million for education, $50 million for transportation, and $41 million for affordable housing. If anyone is in those areas and they feel like that is what they want to understand, are we serious about those things? Clearly, this slide shows that we are. And our revenue sharing number that we also received our update from the county is $21.8 million. So I'm sure they're happy to give us another $1.7 million on top of what they've been giving us. So 8.5% higher, and we will receive that in January of next year. And again, we thank you. This budget proposes a tax rate increase of 2 pennies on the real estate tax. That is necessary to balance all the things that I just went through and being able to make those things happen and meet the priorities that were identified for us for this cycle. With that 2-cent increase on the real estate tax, our general fund rises to $279 million. That's an additional $2.4 million in new revenue, $14 million total in revenue growth. Prior, it was $11 million. So that represents a 5.4% increase. And the basis for that increase at 2 pennies on the real estate is the deeper transit investments, the school's local match at the higher number than budgeted, and the collective bargaining impacts that we are also having to absorb. So this is how the money breaks down. When you look at what the general fund revenues are, local taxes is the largest source of where those funds come from. And then when you look at the expenses, they're going out in so many different ways, the largest being the local contribution to schools, public safety, and healthy families and community. So the budget is balanced because it has to be. That's what the charter says. I must balance the budget. So Ms. Hamill lost some sleep. I wanted to pull out the little hair that I have, but we were able to get the number to balance so that we could come before you and present to you a balanced budget. I also just want to touch on a couple of things, and we're wrapping up at this moment. ARPA is the program where we receive funds that were related to COVID. We are still, bless you, dealing with the funds. We received $19.6 million, well, actually $20 million, and we've spent so far $19.6 million. There remains $600,000 that is already encumbered across different programming activities that we have still with this city government. They all have to be expended by December 31st, or we have to send them back. And Sam doesn't send money back to the federal government, so everybody's been warned they must spend the money. And we have also earned $1.9 million in interest, so those are funds that we will be able to spend for other things. And we also have the conversation about surplus. Yes, we do have a surplus. We've continued to have a surplus because the surplus that we generated out of our last budget, I begged for us to hold on to those funds because we knew that the administration was changing in DC and we did not know what the volatility was going to bring to us. I would venture to say that we still don't know. But what we have done is we have started to use those funds. I came before you a couple of times this summer and also came back and we spent a little over $6 million acquiring 2000 Holiday Drive. Just pointing out to you that there are other opportunities to spend those funds. They are one-time use. That's always the reminder about surplus. The suggestion to use one-time money for a recurring expense means you're only taking care of it today and you're not thinking about it tomorrow, even though you know you owe the bill. So the goal is for us to never put ourselves in a place that we are structurally imbalanced on being able to afford our debt. These are some of the things that we've been able to do with surplus. It is not that the money is lost. It is yours to spend. Every decision will come before you, and I plan to come to you in the next meeting and spend a big chunk because there are a lot of things that still need to be addressed. So I point that out to you as well, that the surplus is there, it is being used, but it does not address the matters that have led us to this point of having to adjust the real estate tax rate. And because I am who I am and I love to tell you the truth, and I think you need to know that, and I think you've come to like it anyway. The going concerns that I have, so this is what keeps me up at night. Federal politics and the potential for punishment, I think it's real for a variety of reasons. The state budget reconciliation means that it's going to be challenged to deliver everything because there are so many things that are being discussed. Our local stresses is that our local revenue may have a little volatility in it. We experienced that for 3 months out of the year last year when we were worried that we were going to have decreased revenues and find ourselves in a real imbalance, but they bounced back. So we hope that that will continue, but I just pointed out because it happened in this current fiscal year. We have deep operational investments through collective bargaining. That is a choice. That is a decision. I'm not judging. It just means that we can't do other things, and we're going to have to reconcile those. And we have sustained policy pressures. Statewide collective bargaining is going to still bring a change. Even though we're ahead of the game, we have 4 contracts, the ability for 2 more. The changes that are being proposed could actually change how we even do it and how we've actually adjusted to being able to do it. And therefore, it could come at additional cost. Zoning changes, loss of local land use controls, those are things that I'm a little concerned about, but we're going to have to see how that shakes out. Funding gaps for transportation. We do not see that the federal government has decided to put transportation at a high level to drop money into that bucket like they normally do when there is a Republican administration in place. And that means that the state is not going to have a whole lot of money either, but our transportation needs, as we've discussed this evening, are big, and we would like to get whatever resources we can from others. Homeless interventions are expensive. They are definitely needed. We all know that this community has been wrestling with this issue for a long time, and therefore we have to be able to make funds available to address it. And we just need more and more housing, and we know that. And then, of course, my cute statement there, the length of our financial runway is what it is, but we have a jumbo jet. So we've got to figure out how do we make this work. What's next is a series of work sessions. We will unpack the budget that I just presented to you. Ms. Hamill will take you through step by step, and I'll just be there watching. And we'll get through the process of making sure that you understand, can ask questions. If there are changes that you would like to propose, because the budget is balanced, that means for every increase, there must be a decrease. And where does that come from? So there are adjustments that we have to make in order for us to be able to do this. And we will start with revenues and expenditures as the focus of the work session this Thursday, March 5th, 6 p.m. in City Space. Budget adoption is scheduled for April 9th, and I will take any questions.
Sam, before we go on, as we are getting questions, if you can go back to the slide and just maybe have that one up until someone wants to change, where you mentioned the 2% increase and where the funding, or the primary reasons for just
where it goes.
For the public, yeah, that one. So you're right. There's just a lot to unpack there.
Yes.
Yeah. Are there questions or comments? You can just chime in.
Let me scroll back up. Do you mind if I start?
No, please.
Thanks. So For the transit plan over the next 4 years, you said it was tough to get drivers. Even if we allocate that for them in the budget, the hiring process is not always as easy as we want it to be.
And I say that's market driven.
Yeah, so how do we advertise? What are what are the positions that we're competing with to attract the drivers?
I think the reality is that we are in a community of roughly 160, 75,000 people, and we have 5 transit systems. That's our problem. There's just too many people driving buses for other reasons that we haven't been able to address it in a different manner. So that just means that if we put 10 spots on the street, chances are that we're not just going to be advertising for those 10 spots. We have our own attrition that we have to work through from having lost drivers as well. So then it becomes more like 13, 14 drivers as well, because there's still turnover that is occurring naturally. And I just feel like that's part of the challenge as to why I would not come to you and say we should add 15 or 20 drivers, because we're not going to deliver that. And we've spent that money that year holding it in reserve for something that won't be delivered when we could use that same money for something else that we could.
There's opportunity cost in not filling those
Absolutely.
positions.
Yes.
And how do we, other than this meeting right here where we're talking about it, how do we advertise these roles?
So we advertise. Our normal means is our HR department puts in a lot of different places. We post in different areas and different resources based on the type of job. So we have various national groups and various local means that we would use. For transit drivers, I'm sure we probably use the more traditional, because those are more local based. And then, of course, there's a process they have to go through. They have to test and pass all of those types of things. So just because you want to drive a bus doesn't necessarily mean that you can.
Yeah.
Sam, I could add on to that we do, I believe we do TV spots, we do radio ads, and we've got wraps on the buses. Even right now, you'll see wraps on the buses for that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of a recruitment issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just curious how we get the message out. And then again, that 40 additional driver over the next several years, when we say that this is for the public, it's also admin requirements and mechanics requirements and additional buses, and so that budget expenditure is not just drivers, it's all of the supporting.
Really, because the way to
infrastructure as
look
well.
at that is there's a grouping of drivers that need a supervisor available to them. So that's why you can't just say we're going to add 10 drivers, because adding 10 drivers means you got to add a supervisor somewhere in that mix, and we don't have that supervisor sitting and waiting. So for every one of these big steps forward, we've got a plan for all the other things that have to be done. And if we're going to have that many drivers, that also means we're going to have more buses on the road. Well, buses break down, so we got to have more mechanics to put them back on the road. So there's a cycle that's being fed by the choice to advance the volume of drivers that we have in place. And all we're saying is that we recognize that that's going to take time and it's expensive. So we have to be able to manage that and smooth out the impacts of that.
And then bus wear and tear on the
That as well.
road as
Right.
well. Yeah, there's all these ripple effects. For skipping down to the right-of-way acquisition for Dominion pole relocations, just to clarify, so if we say, hey, here's the land, they will move the pole, or they're responsible for moving the pole, so all we have to do is make sure that there's space to move the pole to?
Yes, I think we've identified 200 poles in the city that we want to relocate. We're going to do that over time. That's not something that can be done very quickly. But what we have found in some of the conversations with them is they didn't have a place to put the pole other than where they put it. And if we don't have right-of-way adjacent to that, then they can't move it. So part of the strategy here for Public Works was to add additional resources so that we could acquire right-of-way, so that then we can say, you can move it here, please move it.
And something I learned at some point during our discussions, and again, share with the public, is you can't just move one, because then the weight of the lines pulls the poles out of order, so you have to shift the whole line, so it's better weighted.
And actually, because there's more than one line, it's a pole that may be owned by Dominion, but it has 3 or 4 different service providers on that pole. Dominion can't move those lines. They have to move their lines. So sometimes it's about the order of moving the lines that are attached to the pole, leaving Dominion last so that they can ultimately move the pole and put a new one in place.
Yeah, okay, cool.
So there's a cycle involved in that process, and that's what makes it a little more complicated.
Great. For the fundamental agencies, CRHA, FAR, and Jeff School, do we see their budgets in more depth, or does your department just review that and we
Yeah,
just get the high level?
everyone submits through our process, so they fill out a grant, basically a grant application is what it amounts to. And in it, they're requesting their resources for the various programming, and they indicate to us what some of their funding is. We don't get audited budgets or anything like that, but I'm kind of working towards that.
And does that just go through the Grants and Budget Office?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And Human Services. Our Human Services
Okay.
team works in partnership with our Budget and Grants team.
And then, sorry, I'm jumping all over the place a little bit. One of the concerns that Michael's brought up a couple times is how the state budget gets finalized after hours. But let's say the state budget gets finalized and we just get a huge pile of money. What?
You're more optimistic than I am, but okay.
Well, I'm just.
Yes, let's go there.
This is
Let's
a
try that.
hypothetical, just
Yes.
for process questions. At that point, we could amend our budget.
You could amend your budget, but we would have adopted the budget before you're likely to know what that pile of money is. So currently, what's available to you without any changes is that you could actually direct us to work with the city attorney to coordinate the language that would allow for you to claw back any amount of funds that the state, giving a larger amount than expected, would actually cause an increase so that that money could come back to the city budget. We haven't done that.
Sure.
But we would have to, we could
But
try
even
to do
after
that.
we pass the budget, we can always
And
amend.
we could
the
always
budget.
amend the budget, yes. I mean, really, you don't amend the budget unless you have a significant reason for amending it.
Sure.
But it is a simple act by this body.
Right, if
to
it's a
make
couple
change.
bucks, but if it is, yeah,
Right.
a big pile.
Right, all you're doing is giving us the authority to recognize the additional funds and appropriate it for use.
Yeah.
So that's the reason
So
for it.
just
That would
wanna-
be the reason for it.
Basically, I'm just asking to see like what is our response capability
Sure.
to that?
Yeah.
that-
And we have looked into the issue of what it would take to move the budget period. I have heard back from some staff, we're still working through others, just to make sure we're not missing anything, and we can provide that to you very shortly. It is not impossible. There's nothing to say that we couldn't do it, but it will cause changes.
All right, I've got some more specific, I already was starting to look at some line items, but I'll save those for
That's what your
line
work
item-
sessions are for. So
sessions.
hold them and bring them to each one of those. And if they don't get answered in those, the last work session is meant to catch anything that we didn't touch.
Okay, I appreciate it, thank you.
Michael, do you have anything at this time?
If you could go back to the transit slide.
I don't remember where it was, so let's see if I can find it. I'm gonna sleep well tonight because this has kept me up.
No, that's all.
I just
Something
passed it. There we go.
transfer, yes.
Yep.
I know one of the requests from Impact this year was to have the city show the scenario for what it would look like to hire 15 drivers a year versus 10, just to show what that would look like. So we're kind of close to what that would look like here. Essentially, it would be at about a little over $400,000 to this number.
Maybe, because I don't know what 5 additional drivers would do to the support staff item below. We didn't have that kind of conversation with the CAT team, so I would wonder how many more positions would need to be added, so that would drive it up, depending on what that came out to be.
So at a minimum, a little over $400,000, potentially more annually.
Right.
I just know that was one of their requests, and, we're pretty close.
And
As
I
you
think-
said, there may be a little bit more to
Yeah.
look at, but
And we can still do that and make that available to you. It's not impossible for us to run those numbers, but we would need time for the team to do that.
sure. Another question, when, at the beginning, you talked about departmental requests. When departments are submitting their requests to get incorporated into our draft budget, are they just submitting what their budget was last year and then anything additional on top of it, and we assume the budget they had last year is a given, or do we say to them, kind of start from zero and kind of build up when you submit justifying your budget?
So we don't do zero-based budgeting, kinda. Like, we could do zero-based budgeting, everybody starts at zero, rebuild your budget. We don't do that. We have relied on the departments to put together their budgets and give us real numbers. We have, each of the past years that I've been here, which is now, it'll be 5 in July, we have dug deep and we've gone deeper each time. We found different approaches to going back in, and as I identified, we went back to some of the larger departments and they surfaced savings. But when they surface savings, we don't just take the surfaced savings and just go with it. We still want to understand what it is that they're cutting, because in some cases they might be cutting something that we might say, no, you've got to do that. But what we are doing is we are taking a closer look. We are using our year-end results, looking at the variances and questioning why are line items still showing money in those pots over multiple years. If we can get an explanation, then we don't really adjust but so much, but in some cases I have cut budgets and said to the director, I need you to figure it out, and we will continue to do that, because of course everything that I can do in that space makes it less likely that I have to come to you and ask for a tax increase.
Mm-hmm. And with schools, I would be interested in at least seeing the scenario of what the state funding looks like, assuming the state Senate's budget and the House budget, because both of them, compared to Youngkin's budget, amended to add hundreds of millions of dollars in additional school funding statewide. I don't know how that filters locally, but I would just be interested in seeing that. Sure. And then I would really like to get clarity on if, in the current collective bargaining agreement, are the schools going to consider that contract agreed to for support staff to keep the wage pay scale for where it is organization-wide, or is it going to be followed by an organizational-wide adjustment and pay scale in line with that? Because I just want to understand what we're planning for, because that's a difference. I don't know if I'm making sense there, but that's a potential difference.
No, I got it.
Yeah,
I understand that.
I mean, that's millions and millions of dollars.
Yep, it is. The first part of that is some analysis that I don't know if we have enough of the details. We'll have to try to see if we can put our hands on it and do something to kind of estimate what percentage we might get based on what the numbers were last year and what percentage schools got. But that's going to take a little time, but I think we could probably figure out something to do there. As it relates to your question about the contract, I don't want to speak about it on behalf of the schools because they have to figure out that for themselves. I can speak to it from what it has been for us, because we're now deep into this. It is a reset. When the contracts are set, you're changing the dynamic. It's a structural change to how your organization operates. You now have two classes of people. You have affiliated and unaffiliated, and not everybody understands that. So we've been trying to teach and explain and help people understand that. We have a policies and procedures manual that governs all of them, but then they have contracts that change certain things. So it does make it complicated in the work of managing people when you have those two different environments at the same time. But when you make the agreements, and you make the agreements that bring forward significant pay increases, you are changing the organization globally, not just that one contract. That one contract is setting the floor for that particular body of your staff. The rest of the staff is watching, wondering, and wanting. So they're going to come at some point when it's their turn to negotiate, and if they're not in the bargaining unit, then those are the ones that are going to give you the kind of responses you don't like on your employee survey. Mm-hmm. So it does change everything that you do, and it all comes at a cost because you are shifting the salaries up, and everything about benefits goes up with that because it's all pretty much triggered by salaries.
Definitely. Yeah, and I just want to have a sense of,
it's a reset.
You know, the scale of that.
It is. I'll also just foreshadow future conversation for you, that going concern list, one of the references about collective bargaining impacts, we have to have a serious conversation about it. I knew that we were going to be finding ourselves there depending on what happened once we got all 4 of these contracts. I wondered if we were going to end up with 6 or not. I was very worried about if we had 6 and how they all came together, what that would cost. But the changes that have been made on the school side, every change that they made is going to come at an added cost on our side too. So we can't just look at their expense and think everything is okay because they're going to cover it. That isn't how it's worked out. They've come to you each year for an increase, so our budget is going to reflect that. So it's their contracts plus our contracts that we have to prioritize.
And, I know we're not going to get it adjusted for this budget cycle. But yeah, I think, when we have to make a decision in an incomplete information environment, just always leads to worse decisions in terms of, in many localities, Richmond, throughout the state, it's more common that they adopt their local budget after the state budget. And I know that we can always amend the budget, but I don't know if I've ever seen a locality not in economic distress claw back money just as a political reality.
Yeah.
And even if it's just imperfect environment, imperfect information environment. But yeah, a lot to process, and I would just say, difficult as it is, whenever I hear these presentations, I still think we're very fortunate. Many localities in Virginia have had their main employer leave or seeing population decline, their budgets decline. So, as you highlighted, we have huge problems with economic inequality and economic mobility, but at least we have a tax base that's not collapsing. So they're difficult problems, but still good problems to have. And as you highlighted, I think we spend second most per pupil on schools. We send the highest per capita on affordable housing in the state. Our social services spending is some of that highest per capita in the state. We spend more on housing outright than Loudoun County, even though their budget is $5 billion. And some people might say that's a negative thing, but I think for all those things, it's because our community values trying to take these issues on and not just kicking the can to the state or federal government. So again, they're positive problems to have, but I appreciate that it makes it very difficult for you every year.
Yep. Characteristics of punching above one's weight class.
Jen, yeah.
Can you remind us the last time that we raised the tax rate on real estate?
It was 2 years ago? Yep, 2 years ago, you raised all four. That was my first budget.
Fun.
But that was the first time personal property tax had been raised in 10 years.
In a while, yeah.
Personal property, not real estate.
Right.
Okay. Is this already available online, the whole book? or-
It is posted now,
Oh, okay, great.
yes.
And are there any, I know we get calculators to kind of play with the numbers, but are those also available? Oh, yeah, they will be, okay.
Under the budget work session section, that calculator that we sent you for the tax rates is on there.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's very helpful. Just for the public, it allows you to put in your personal numbers and see what the tax rate implications
tax-
are.
yeah, what you'll be paying.
What you'll be paying differently. So that was very helpful. And then on the bike ped, they were kind of grouped together as an item, but I don't know if it got a number to it. It was, yeah, can you kind of?
They're just identified. They're in the CIP in different ways.
Okay.
So that was just me just capturing it, just to speak to the idea that we have identified bike ped.
Those were the line items that I had.
That was, yeah. No, we'll save this. Okay, great. Got it. Yeah.
We know we can talk about that a little bit. I was trying to make sure I said something to
I
each of
know,
you about what
thank
you
you.
wanted.
See yourself in the budget. Love Sam.
That's right.
Yeah, this is, thank you for going over it in detail. I very much appreciate this. This is making a lot more sense. And, yeah, we have some work to do, but you've already done all that work. Thank you. So, I don't have any other questions.
Yeah. Lloyd?
Got nothing right now?
Yeah, I think we're getting
going
nice
deeper.
and cozy
Yep.
over the next
Yep.
4 Thursdays. And thank you.
Can we put that slide up real quick, just the schedule, so if
yeah.
anyone's tuned in, they can get a quick snapshot at where they can find us to talk about the budget?
And this will also be posted, my presentation will be posted, if it's not already posted, and this budget timeline is a separate item so that people can pull that down if they need to as well.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All right,
sir.
thank you.
So this is definitely not the last. We're now at the opportunity for community matters. You certainly can speak on the budget, but there'll be, I think at each of our work sessions, there's opportunity at the end of each session for public input as well. But would anyone from the public like to speak on this? If not, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, please say no. Thank you.